Good morning.
Hey, what's
How
up,
you?
man?
Oh, not much. I'm back and surviving.
You back in
Canada, yeah.
cooler climes.
You're telling me. You're telling me.
That day you mentioned it was so hot. It was like 91 degrees that day. It was pretty smoking hot.
Yeah, you're telling me. Yeah, I liked it though. Everybody's got air conditioning, so it doesn't matter what's happening outside. And
Well, unless you have to work outside.
yeah, that's true.
There was some just down from me. They're building not a bank, but a whatever, and the roofing guys up on top of it. I was like, man, I
How
hope
do
those guys
you
get
do
paid
it?
good.
I know, right?
I mean, I've done some of that roofing work years ago. Tigger, get down. Come on, trying to get my cat out of the way. I'm sitting there all of a sudden. I got a help screen coming up because he's stepping on the keyboard. Uh, yeah. But you know what's funny is, I was in the Army so many years, and days like that we'd be in full kit with Kevlar helmet, your web belt, you're carrying gear, carrying a weapon.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, drink water. Would you move 1 second? Who cares? God. He wants to be sociable, I think. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Lay down in front of
What's
the
going
keyboard.
on? Yeah, sorry I didn't call you while I was down there. It's just I was working from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, and when we weren't doing that, we were going to all the different restaurants where he was showing the Canadian to everybody, which was obviously the local attraction.
Now come my other cat. Um, that's funny. That's like, hey, look here, I got me one of them Canadians.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's going around teaching me, just how the South works, because I don't want to get into it, but like Canada really didn't like. Of course, we were. Uh, it's not. We didn't have really slavery, quote unquote, in
Okay.
Canada. Uh, in the historical reference, the slaves came to Canada to find refuge, and I'm sure there was slaves in Canada. I'm sure we had slaves cleaning houses and stuff like that, but it wasn't the same. That's all I'm saying. It wasn't the same. So I'm pretty ignorant to all those things. I have no idea what things were like and stuff like that. So they took me around. They showed me all the different things, how the different it's so interesting for somebody who doesn't know. And so he took me to soul food restaurant, which I understand now is kind of like a black restaurant where they just give you good down home meals.
See, I take that's one of the things for. Wait a minute, goddamn cats! Damn,
It
Jesus.
was just to finish my sentence though, that was the best food I've ever had in my life, and the waitresses there were the most friendly out of the whole state. I had such a good time there.
They used to irritate me just a little bit when this. I would be in. They used to have Black History Month, and they'd have soul food.
Mhm.
Well, the reason it used to irritate me was that was home cooking for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was soul. What the hell are you talking about? Soul food? This is the way that the Southerners eat.
They do.
It's like almost a description that the Yankees have passed on to describe Southern food.
Oh, I see. I see.
It's like, uh, look, cornbread cooked in a skillet,
Yeah.
in an iron skillet, so it's got a crust.
Yeah.
Greens, ham, uh, fried chicken. I mean, that's the way people eat in this part of the country.
Very
And we used to look forward now to Black History Month because of the food, the Southern boys. Because
Yeah.
but it's like they always got to have black-eyed peas, and that's fine. But Crowder peas are better. It's like obviously whoever made the recipe up must have been a bunch of Yankees because they read that Southerners like our soul food with black-eyed peas. Well, a Crowder pea, which is sweeter, is better.
Yeah.
It's like the come on. What is with my cats? Get down. God.
A water bottle with a little spray water bottle works for that.
Well, I mean, he's not doing nothing evil. He's laying down in front of my keyboard. He's wanting to be my buddy.
In between you and the action.
Yeah. It wouldn't be so bad except he lays on the keyboard and then it starts going crazy. So, what are you working on?
Gillmeister coal.
Gillmeister coal. Okay.
It's a Craftsman kit by Laser Modeling 3, and I've been working on it for the last month on YouTube. 1 second, here comes my daughter.
Well, don't spray with water.
True.
A little spray. I have never built a Craftsman kit. One of these days I need to, but.
Well, to tell you the truth, I have the plans from a number of Craftsman kits, and I can send you the plans down. I think the plans are pretty much what makes the Craftsman kit.
Yeah.
The instructions.
I built the. You saw some of my cardstock stuff. It's basically scratch built.
Yeah. That's the same as Craftsman kits. You're basically scratch building some parts. Sometimes they come with, these laser cut stuff, but You know, it's about the painting techniques and stuff like that that never comes in the instructions is what a craftsman kit is.
Well, I tell you what, when I look at those, um, what you got there, and it's kind of funny. I was watching this. I talked about the guys who was roofing that. God, what is it called? Not a bank. It's like a bank. Anyway, but they came with all the stuff pre-made up, so all the A-frames, the
Trusses?
the trusses. Yeah, man, they come in this big on a truck, so they basically have a big craftsman's kit.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's because the stuff is pre-made, and all they do is put it together.
Yeah.
But you know, I was reading this thing. I was watching this thing. It was about the railroads and how they had a a little depot.
Yeah.
A lot of the railroads would actually build them somewhere else and build them in sections and then put them on a flat car and ship it. So, you know, they had a shop somewhere, and that's what they did. They built the trusses, they built the walls and everything, and they just basically sent a kit to the out in the middle of nowhere. I always thought it was kind of neat. Giant craftsman kits.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, I shut the mic off because the telephone was ringing. Waiting for the women to pick it up. You know, women, once they hear the telephone, they go running. First time of the day, go running.
I don't know what is with that. I made a statement here on Facebook, and a couple of my lady friends got slightly offended about me commenting about the women on the phone driving.
Yeah, yeah.
If you go to a parking lot like Walmart or something, and you see a car, every single woman has a phone stuck to her ear. Right with one hand in a parking lot. And that's like, I'm sorry, I thought that in a place where people are walking, you might want to pay attention. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I made a comment on one of the some post somewhere about, oh, I know what it was. Is a friend of mine is a cop. He almost got run over the other day. They had an ambulance got T-boned by a car.
Oh no.
Yeah, the ambulance had come up to the lights, had the lights on, is making its way slowly through the light, and this guy, he bypasses the other cars that had stopped for the ambulance because he had a green light, I guess, and T-bones the ambulance and turns it over. Now, it was a nice ambulance, by the way. I was looking at the video. It was a Mercedes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So, in the meantime, here comes the first responders and the cops, and they're all, and then my friend, a guy I actually was in the Army with, he almost gets run over because his other car hits the first car.
My God.
It's like, gee, people, you see lights in distance, maybe slow down.
Yeah.
I was last year before last, they were just down from my house. They were repaving a road, and when they come through the big machine that eats all the old asphalt off.
Yeah, the grinder. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's all these signs that says road construction ahead, slow to 15 miles an hour, be prepared to stop.
Yeah, fines will be doubled in a construction zone.
Yeah, well, I'm down there, and I hear behind me, about, 100 foot behind me, a screech of tires and a crunching sound of somebody tail-end somebody. Well, what did you, I'm sorry if somebody got injured, and I'm sorry that they broke their car. But at the same time, I'm like, what did you think it meant when it said slow down, construction ahead?
Yeah. And
So
thing I noticed though too is that construction usually happens doesn't you some like on road construction in the south. It doesn't really happen during the day when it's too hot, so they take the signs down. You can tell it's construction, but you can see the signs turned down in the median and the side of the road.
they do a lot of stuff at night, but it's also because it's not as much traffic.
Yeah. So, you get to understand when it's on and then it's off. I don't know.
Well, but these guys were working during the day, and there were signs up that said, and everybody's slowing down because you're in a line, and all of a sudden, one machine's crossing the road, and everybody stops.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I got no sympathy. Anyway, the point is that if you're so stupid that you don't know when a sign says slow down is construction, and you haven't slowed down, you telling somebody, I get no. And so anyway, I was responding to this post Donald had made about this almost getting smushed in this. He was the officer. It talks about one officer almost got hit, but that was turned out with him.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, he's a lieutenant, so he's probably out there supervising.
Never got out of his car.
I don't know, but now I knew the guy when he was like 21 or something like that. He just got married. And he was a little skinny kid, a specialist I knew in the Army. In my tank unit. But what I posted up was I said, I'm all for the Second Amendment. But my problem is this. You see people driving cars that are too stupid to have a license. Well, it's true. If you can't obey the traffic laws, or if you're coming through a residential section and you need a sign that says slow down,
yeah,
because there's houses on both sides with kids and pets. I do not need a sign that slow down. There's kids playing. I'm sorry. If you're so stupid that you can't drive, you shouldn't have a license. And that was my point was I said that's the same thing with the Second Amendment with guns. If you're too stupid to drive a car, then you're probably too stupid to own a weapon. But, I mean, seriously, there ought to be, you have the right to own a weapon if you're not too stupid. If you're too stupid, good luck. Sorry.
Well, the thing is there's a driver's test.
Yeah, sure. I say this when obviously the tests they take are not very good ones because they're not failing these idiots. My dad, when we were in England, when he was in the Air Force, and he had to get a I forget it was a European driver's license or something the military has to have, right? And it included things like backing up through a bunch of those orange cones.
Yeah.
And you had to weave your way backwards and a whole bunch of stuff. You had to prove you could drive a car. And if you couldn't pass the thing, you didn't get a license. And a lot of people go, oh, well, what am I going to do? I'll get my kids to school. I don't know. Walk them. Mail them. I don't give a damn. It's not my problem. It's like if a cop, in some states, they have a point system, and you get so many points for each, depending on how serious your violation was. And if you get so many points, you lose your license for 6 months. Well, the answer these people come up with is, well, if I lose my license, I can't take my kids to school, I can't go to work, blah, blah, blah. And my answer is, I don't care. That's not my problem.
Yeah.
You're putting me in danger because you're an idiot.
For real. For real.
It's up to me you would have to take a test. Now, oh, they don't like this in order to vote. I think y'all proved. I thought you proved. Look, if you're so, they had a guy on TV interviewing people, and they could not tell who the vice president of the United States was. If you are so stupid that you don't know who the vice president, you shouldn't be voting. You're an idiot.
Joe Biden, and I say that because I had a full-on conversation with a bunch of people down in North Carolina about politics and stuff like that, and they'd all be going, "What's that guy's name? And what's that this and that?" And guess who was the one who said the name? The Canadian.
Well, look, you remember George Carlin?
Yep, the bearded comedian.
Yeah. He has one of his famous quotes is, "Think how stupid the average person is, and half of them are stupider than that." But it's some truth to it. If an IQ is basically on a bell curve, okay?
Yeah.
And people get upset. Oh, what do you mean a bell curve? I mean a bell curve, you fucking moron. You know, it's like everything's a bell curve. The height of people. You take an average people. The height of the human beings is on a bell curve. It's equal on both sides. So first, I'll stop being ignorant, you know, and learn something. But on the bell curve, you got basically the equal number of smart people and dumb people. So it forms a curve.
Yeah.
How wide the curve, the height of the curve, that's just Mach Snicks. So the average person is at the very tip top of that bell curve. That means half the people are stupider.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying the average person is half the human race is less than average intelligence. And so you're like, oh, no wonder they can't drive. But they let them vote. I got my rights. No,
I love it the way you said that.
Well, you know, you're right. You're rats. RAHTS. Rats.
Yeah.
My view is that somebody's right stops when it starts blocking mine, and that's just like
you have a point, because when we have children and we don't leave them at home by themselves because they're not smart enough.
Correct.
So we give them a babysitter, somebody who's smart enough to make the right decisions for them.
Well, see now that a lot of people don't realize it. That was why in 1789, I think it was, when they had the Constitutional Convention, or 93, whatever it was, the Constitutional Convention down here, and they came up with the Constitution. The type government they came up with, because they generally believe that people are too stupid to do it for themselves. So when you elect a representative that is smarter, because remember, there were lawyers and stuff doing this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So basically the idea was that as a group of people, you elect somebody that hopefully has got more brains than the average person.
Yeah.
But then you get Joe Biden as vice president.
Or Rob Ford as mayor.
Well, you know, you're just like, this is so embarrassing that you would elect a total idiot. What says something about the elected, or the whichever the people doing the electing. I like what Robert Heinlein came up with some of his books, where basically you didn't receive a citizenship directly. You had to earn it through service, either military service or through social service or something. You had to do something other than just being born and breathing.
Yeah.
And I think in one of his books, you couldn't get a driver's license until you took some mathematics, because you had to understand about, you know, a couple thousand-pound vehicle moving at 60 miles an hour, how long it takes to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Chester joined.
Hi, Chester.
I see his picture.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's sort of like they go, they get this big thing here is about, well, so-and-so was in the military. I go, and what's your point? Well, blah, blah, blah. I go, I've known idiots in the Army that I wouldn't hire to pick up dog poop. Well, you know, because they're, seriously. It's just because somebody has is a member of an organization or something doesn't mean they should have a job or should have a specific job.
Yeah.
It must be based upon their knowledge and their abilities.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, if I'm gonna have like the Veterans Administration, that big snafu down here with the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe the guy in charge of that should be a veteran.
Should be what?
A veteran.
Oh, well, why not?
Well, no, because they put the people in front of them things that are bureaucrats, and it's all, you know, it's because in the Army, once you reach about a major, you become a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
A field grade officer. And it's all political, because in order to get higher in rank, you have to play the politics, and you become a member of the bureaucracy.
The bullshitter crew.
Well, there was the general back. You remember when Katrina took out New Orleans?
Yep.
Oh, don't even get me started about idiots that live below sea level. But and I lived there for 6 months in the Army. It's nothing like living in a place with these giant pipes running beside the road.
Yeah, I went there when I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know what you're talking about.
But the people are like, oh, and it did this. I'm sad for you, but you're living below sea level. I mean,
time ain't on your side.
Do you know how that came about? Do you know?
What? What part?
Well, about why there are people living below sea level and all that.
No.
The French Quarter. You're familiar with the French Quarter. It's where all the Mardi Gras and all that.
Yeah.
All right. Originally, that was where the warehouses was. And the reason was that was the first high ground, rocky ground up the Mississippi that they could build things like warehouses and things like that.
Okay.
Well, once the warehouses and docks and things like that, and people started building out from it, well, once you get away from the French Quarter, it starts getting low. So you start filling in the ground, you start building dikes and that sort of stuff. So that was basically it was the support and the housing and everything around the only high place they could put docks and warehouses back in the 1700s or whenever it was, 1800s. So that's an explanation, but it's still not logical that so much of the city's below sea level. You know, and they say, well, we have to support it. Well, no, you don't. You can move their stupid town north where it's like dry land. You're only there because you were there, and then everybody else is there.
I'm listening. Sorry, when somebody comes in the room, I just mute the mic. So
yeah,
just so you know.
But you know, it's. I was there for I was in Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge for 5 years. There's once you get below Baton Rouge, the land basically disappears because it's a delta.
Yeah.
And that whole southern, the last third of Louisiana, or a quarter of Louisiana, is really no solid ground. It's a bunch of little islets.
Okay.
And that was compounded by the Corps of Engineers in the 30s when the U.S. Corps of Engineers went up and started doing all this upgrades to the Mississippi because of the flooding.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was, prior to that, all that flooding up along the Mississippi would deposit the dirt down in Louisiana. And once the Corps of Engineers stopped the flooding, that means that the river keeps, and now it's washed away the last third of Louisiana. It no longer drops the soil. So there's a lot. Yeah. So those Cajuns all live down there, and it's just, you know, tens of thousands of islands down there.
Yeah.
And which tends to segregate that culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's much like mountain people in the older days, where, you know, mountain ridges and stuff, valleys cut people off from other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it stagnated. The culture didn't change until into roads and stuff like that, because they were isolated.
Yeah.
And I imagine that's still the way it is up in parts of Canada and stuff, where the people are basically isolated from everybody else, but by distance.
Yeah. Yeah, there's major distance changes in Canada because the highway system runs along the border.
Right.
Basically, all the population of Canada runs along the border with the United States, and obviously, a lot of people are populated in the northern sections of the country, but to get there, you got to go by the highway, and the highways aren't like the interstate highway system, which is, you know, for a Canadian, the interstate highway system is crazy. I got lost so many times, missing turnoffs, because the sign to get off the highway is on the on-ramp, which, if you ask me, is probably about a mile or two too late. You know.
Well, at least unlike Mexico, you don't get thrown in prison for making a wrong turn.
What?
They got that Marine that's in a Mexican jail because he. That's a corrupt system down there. I always thought it was kind of interesting. I'd seen pictures of his town on the Canadian-American border, and they had a road that ran right down the middle of the border, and
Yep.
it had a red line painted on it. It's like, oh, that's a border. You can't cross here to the store. You got to walk down to the crossing point.
Yeah.
Cross over, and if you're home.
I listen to radio. I like to listen to radio shows, and one of them is this Canadian radio show called The Vinyl Cafe. And the Vinyl Cafe goes to the States to do its shows. It's about this guy who tells these fictional stories that he's created up of real people. Or is fiction the made-up stuff, or is non-fiction? I forget. But he made up these stories of people who, like, from people he knows in real life, and kind of makes up stories in their style.
He fictionalizes
their lives.
Reality.
Yeah. So he does these shows. They're really, really good. It's called The Vinyl Cafe. It's wonderful. You can find it online. Well, he did this show in eastern on the eastern Canada, or the states, because in this building, the stage is in Canada, and all the spectators are in the States. So that's how close we are.
Well, no, there was. I was reading about this one group. They would it was like you go to Burger King, you go across the border. You go to the movie, you go across the border. You go to you know, to them it was just normal. It was could freak a lot of people out. I know at one time,
Excuse me.
maybe not so much more, but in Europe, they've opened the borders up, but it was tripping it was tripping out the Europeans that they had this border. It was just a shave. Basically, they shaved the trees off the border and put a fence up. He was like, okay, that's where it's at.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And you look at the way the border is. I saw a YouTube video about it, and there's a line cut out all the way across our border. There's people who cut the line, keep
Across
it
mountains and everything.
across the mountains and everything, and there's mile markers, all that stuff right along the border, and it is as strange can be. Like just how they figured it out. You know, it's not a straight line. It does things that just. So,
well, especially if you zoom in, it's like goes around a lake and up around a hillock and down around a town. You know, it's just like it wiggles.
and yet then, yeah, it'll go up and around a lake, like that lake was important, and then all of a sudden it'll go straight through the town. Now, if that lake was so important that you went around it, now why didn't you just make that town important too?
Well, you know, I mean, see, that is what makes history interesting, because the details that are lost, the why people do stuff. I know for that a lot of the towns were a railroad would one railroad would cross another railroad.
Yeah.
A river junctions, of course, trading centers, and that, which is, you stop and think about it, a railroad junction or a some place along a river is all trade. It's all trade. It's where a road crosses and so on.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is here in the South, the older highways weave everywhere, because when they built them, they didn't cut through the hills, they wound around them, right?
Yeah.
And some of them, if you really go back, you find out that they actually built them on top of the old dirt roads, or gravel roads, and the gravel roads were on top of the dirt roads, and the dirt roads were the original when they moved wagons and stuff.
Yeah, the wagon trails.
Well, what it is, if you look at a map, and you can look at some of the old roads, and what you do is you look at the terrain. You follow the path of least resistance. So
yeah.
You weave your way. It's almost like a railroad working its way up a mountain. It's, you know, or like a narrow gauge, I guess you would say, where instead of building, you know, cutting through a ridge or you weave your way up it. And there was somebody pointed out one time that if you watch where water flows, and that water, a river will cut down through a path, and that's usually the best way to build a road, is alongside it, because it goes down the least resistance, and it's usually the best route.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, going through West Virginia was one of the funnest things I've ever done. Actually, on the way back, since I'm safely here in Canada, I had this guy behind me. Now, my eyes aren't good enough that I was able to see that he was Canadian, but I knew he was riding my bumper. So what I did was pulled over to the side like a respectful person should, let him pass. Well, when he was passing, I saw he had an Ontario license plate.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, if you want to go fast, I'm going to go fast with you, and then it's going to be a lottery of who gets caught. So next thing you know, we're going down the highway. Now, I don't know exactly what in miles we were doing, but we were going 140 kilometers an hour. And I think that's around 85 or 90 miles an hour through those mountains on the toll road.
Right.
77, I think it is. And holy smokes, was that ever a ride? Oh.
I went through the Smoky Mountains, which is up there about where you were in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And there was I'm going through there in my 350Z at speed. That's fun. What you doing, Tigger? Hey, what, Tigger? You're no way. You're waving your tail. Look at that. Searching for food. I know it's what you're doing. That's their life. They're not sleeping, eating. They're looking for something to eat. Come think of it, humans pretty much the same way.
It's probably what it is.
No, I mean, we say, oh, look at that cat. All he does is eat, sleep, and whatever. And it's like, well, what do humans do? When you're not they're playing. You're not playing. You're looking for. Let's go get something to eat. Let's make a barbecue.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up with Chester.
He's probably having a coffee listening to us.
Oh.
Having a nice old smoke sitting there and relaxing.
Maybe he's barbecuing.
Barbecuing?
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. You said you was 18. When you were in New Orleans, or that area, did you ever go to a shrimp boil?
Pardon me, shrimp?
No, a shrimp boil or a crawfish boil.
Oh, those boys told me about that when I was down in North Carolina. No, I didn't.
I just wondered. That's some pretty good times there. They have it goes by different, and they got the same basic thing all the way up the coast, up into hell, Maine probably. Basically, you have a spicy mix that you throw into boiling water, and you toss in seafood and other things.
Yeah.
Everybody sits around and eats it and drinks beer.
Yeah.
And down around New Orleans, southern Louisiana, it's crawfish, it's corn on the cob, red potatoes, new potatoes, baby potatoes, sausage, and it's all with the crawfish and the spicy stuff. And it's cooked. They take these big scoops, like a mesh scoop, like a shovel.
Yeah.
And it's just dumped out on newspaper on the table.
Yeah.
You just stand around with beer, cold beer, and it's great.
And have at it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was told about that. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, there's corn and everything down there. You like their corn down there, like the grits. I didn't know what it was.
Think about it. If you go up north, you got a flour or some kind of flour about basically everything. I mean, you got to have a bread, at least a bread like.
Is that what it is? It's a substitute for flour, wheat flour.
Yeah, because see, wheat don't grow down here.
Yeah.
Corn does. I mean, cornbread is the. You stop thinking about it. Prior to the modern times when we got highways and shipping and stuff like that, corn grows. But wheat now grows out in the Midwest and wherever.
Yeah.
I've never seen a wheat field. I don't know what's to do with the weather or the season or whatever, but the corn does grow. So that's a grain. It's a grain, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you, I tell you what, grits is good with I like my breakfast grits. My grits with some butter.
Oh man, everything goes with butter down there.
Yeah. I was at Waffle House the other day. I had 2 eggs over easy, bacon, toast, and grits with butter. That was some good. I mean, you may can tell I'm talking about food. I'm about to starve to death.
What did I do? Oh, I said to the waitress, I said, "Is this margarine?" The lady goes, "No, that's not margarine." And the guy sitting beside me looked at me with the widest eyes I ever seen him had, and he says, "Did you know that margarine is one ingredient away from plastic?" I was like, "Say no more."
No, I've read that somewhere. It's basically the same chemical formula, I think. But you know, you can say that it's true, but at the same time, water is only a couple symbols, a chemical syllables different from things that kill you too. So they really don't mean anything chemically.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You got H2O. You got or salt or table salt. Is a perfect example. Sodium chloride. Well, excuse me. Yeah, you eat salt, but you're not going to eat sodium. You know.
Yeah.
And you can say, oh well, margarine is only a couple of chemical numbers difference between that and plastic. That's true. And table salt is on it's the 2 ingredients are that both sodium and chlorine will kill your ass.
Yeah.
And so it don't mean anything, except if you're trying to make a point,
Yeah.
Hydrogen peroxide, H2O2. I wouldn't suggest you drink it. Oh, gee, it's only one chemical symbol away.
You can clean your moons with it.
Well, I mean, sometimes people irritate me. It's just like, I know a lot of times people irritate me. Well.
That's why you're inside in the modeler instead of a bartender or out sitting at the bar talking to everybody.
I was talking to somebody about. Oh, I was at Lowe's, I think, and I was talking about what was. Oh, I remember what it was. We were talking about. There's this place somewhere around here where they got like 140 types of beer.
Yeah.
And you get like a little passport, and you get stamped, and you can try a different one each time. And I said, that's all well and good, but the problem is that is a 60-mile round trip. I am not going to drive 30. Well, I am not going to drive 30 miles and start drinking beer and have to drive back.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I would love to go to a sports bar. There's a sports bar where you come to town. They got the big screens. You got beer and booze, and you can sit there and watch the games and have a great time. That's fine. Except you got to drive to get there. So, what? I'm supposed to sit there and drink a pitcher of beer and then get in my car and go driving drunk?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, I found some remarkable things about the States, too. I found out that McDonald's is about as cheap as a dollar store. Like in Canada, You can't go to McDonald's and walk out of it with food for yourself for less than $10. But in McDonald's in the States, holy smokes, I can get a 20 pack of chicken nuggets and a pop or a coffee for $5.
Well, you know, the best thing about McDonald's for me was traveling. If you're on the road, if you can pull in, get a coffee, and get something real quick at a reasonable cost. You know, just the problem I got with at least our local McDonald's is it is so packed all the time that I don't stop because I don't want to hassle with all the people.
Yeah.
It's like, and you know, here's a funny thing. There's always somebody on Facebook publishing something about the ingredients of a McDonald's burger or Burger King, or somebody took it apart and put it under a microscope, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Or they bought it and put it on their fridge, and they put a mark on it after each year to see
or
how it's preserved still.
It's like, you know, every once in a while, I would just like a good cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about how much unsaturated. I know it's got unsaturated. I don't care. I want some French fries and a burger and a soda. And I don't want the government telling me whether I can or can't.
Unfortunately, I believe it's not the government, it's the mummy blogger crew. The PETA people. The people who are just...
It's... Some people get so... They're all bent out of shape about stuff, and all they do is repeat what somebody else says. It's like this Bloomberg up in New York City, where they regulate the size of the sodas to... And I'm looking at that going, and what stops a guy from buying two 16-ounce sodas? You know,
nothing, but you know, you shouldn't be offered something that's way too big. Like, if you want 2 sodas, buy 2 sodas. They give free refills if you don't have enough in your small 8-ounce cup.
Correct. And I would be happy with a 4-ounce soda. I mean, I don't drink much. But the point is, I don't need the government deciding, some bureaucrat deciding what is good for me. I'll give you a perfect example. There's this big thing about marijuana, right?
Yeah.
And somebody asked me, and they said, should it be legalized? I go, yes. Do you think people should smoke it? No, I don't. Well, isn't that a contradiction? I said, no. I can tell you that a pothead is a lot less likely to go murder and kill somebody than somebody's drinking whiskey. But
I agree.
So, you know, alcohol is legal. Why should the government? What should they be doing? I said, no, they shouldn't, because it's the same reason you shouldn't be inhaling any burning plant material into your lungs. It's not good for you physically. But do I think the government should be telling me not to do it? No. And if somebody wants to, what the liberal left what they would say is, as a populace, we have to support people that get emphysema. We got to pay the bills, and so we should regulate it. I go, no. It was up to me making the laws. I would say make it legal, but in order for you to legally smoke marijuana, you should have to sign a piece of paper that says, I recognize that I may get emphysema, so I freely sign away my you paying for my medical bills. You know, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, if you want to go jump off a bridge, let you, but don't hold nobody responsible for you doing it.
Yeah. But also, on the same token, though, if you're a smoker, then they'd have to give you the same paper. Actually, before you say something about that, because I know you're a smoker and I'll probably get a nice response out of it.
I haven't smoked since 1995.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I assumed so. But the thing is because of these laws with marijuana, like I'm not a smoker, but that universities are not allowed to grow it and study it for its medicinal purposes. So we got all this horse crap that was thrown down everybody's throat in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Yes, political.
Which was not true, and the truth can't even be proved anymore by educated people because of the legal.
Well, here's the deal. Look, I smoked pot from when I was in Vietnam up until 1987. That's 15 years, okay? So when I went in the Army, I quit smoking pot because you can't have a career and do drugs, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I had a moral thing against it. It's because society says, and it makes sense that you don't want people operating machinery that's high.
Yeah, and you're a responsible citizen. Yeah.
I mean, it's so my point of view is, if you're doing something that will affect your work, then you shouldn't be doing it. Because you're that's the same thing with driving with a cell phone, or talking when you're going to a parking lot.
Or drinking and working.
Drinking and working, same thing. Now, when I went in the Army, they ask you, have you ever they ask you these questions about drugs and stuff like that, right? So I go, yeah, I smoke pot. How much you smoke? I go, as much as I can get. Well, it's because I was being totally honest. I said, I am not smoking now. I have not smoked for like 2 months before I went back in the Army in '87.
Yeah.
I said, I got enough sense to quit and not do it. It was like, and they look at you like you're crazy. Like, you admit to it? Yeah, I admit to it. Well, I'm going to lie? I'm not doing it now. I quit.
Yeah. When I do something really bad, you want me to tell the truth, don't you?
Well, I was like, I'm not going to sit there and lie because they get caught in the end.
Yeah.
And nothing ever came of it because they're like, oh, okay. But
and I got a point to say about that. Even if it's not about marijuana, telling the truth these days is a problem for a lot of people. Like this YouTube thing that we're doing right now, these Hangouts, it started out with where I was supposed to be on this YouTube modelers whatever show. And a question came to me. It says, or a statement was made to me, there will be no advertisements on this show, right? So I said, well, I can't be a part of this show because I work with advertisers from time to time. Like, just as that I don't spam companies left and right, but people who support my website and stuff like that, I'll when I'm working on their kits, I'll say their name and what their website is and all that stuff. So I was honest. I said, well, that's the way it is. And he said, well, that's not the way I'm going to work. So I said, well, that's fine. I guess I'll have to go out and do this on my own. Right? Well, it comes back a week later or 2 weeks later where the guy says, well, I don't think that you're really going to be advertising the way I thought you were going to be advertising, right? And I said, well, I know you didn't understand what I was saying, and I just, instead of having some disagreement later on that was going to change everything on your show, I was being respectful and said, well, I advertise and I'm going to have to step out of this thing. Well, the next thing you know, it's a can of worms because I said the truth. Now it's like I've got a definition put onto me that is just totally untrue, and I'm a truthful person, so you'd think these people would just turn around and say, well, Ron, what is it? You know, and I'd turn around and I'd reply truthfully, you know. But it's people have an expectation for you to send them a line of bullshit.
Well, the problem is where do you draw the line? I'll give you a perfect example. If you read the Model Railroad magazine, when they do an article,
yeah,
every single line is they're promoting somebody's product.
Yeah.
I use brand blah 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 Scotch tape, and then my glue is made by so and so, and then I used a brush by the, you know, it's like, give me a break.
Yeah.
I know you're pushing your advertisers, but you know, it's like the articles are good, but just after a while it starts like every, you know.
I haven't received a nickel from Weld Bond glue.
Well,
I
yeah,
haven't received a nickel, but you'll see this product in every single show I've got. Right, Chester?
Hey! Hi, guys.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry, I was on a long-distance phone call. I didn't want to
It's all good.
try to talk over you. So you're selling Weld Bond now, huh?
Yeah. These people bug the crap right out of me when it comes down to it. Like I got an email 2 days ago, and it says, and it's addressed. It's not addressed to me. It's addressed to the person who sent the email, which means that he has me in a list of people, right? Well, the email is talking directly to somebody, and it looks like he's talking to me, right? Except that it doesn't have a name in it. So that kind of bugs me, you know, because he's not talking to me, and when I reply, I'm talking to him. You know, and the whole email was about me promoting his venture, his YouTube ventures and stuff like that. And I know that he's out to support a lot of people, and he supports other people, but it's just, it kind of miffs me off, you know. If you're talking to a bunch of people, you reference these people as, you know, guys, or I'm sending this email to my list. You know, be honest about it. Just be honest. Don't beat around the bush.
Right.
Well, I mean, that would
I
be
think a lot of that's just plain laziness, though. I mean, you know, they just want to write one thing and then send it to everybody.
Oh, but that's like, I've got groups on my Google Mail. I do genealogy, so I might have one group, my Chandler surname group. That's all the people. It's all my cousins and stuff that's Chandlers or Corleys or so. But when I send it out, like Ron says, you reply to the group as a whole. You don't unless if I CC somebody, I will say, by the way, I'm CCing this to everybody else in the group. But since they're interested in what I'm saying to you, I'm just you know what I'm saying? I mean, to me it makes sense. Now, if I'm replying to my cousin Sue and I go, hey Sue, this is about, you asked about your great uncle so and so, and by the way, I'm CCing this to everybody else in the group. But I'm talking to her direct. But you know, like you said, what you're getting is sort of like the emails you get from the politicians. They're like, hey Ed, blah blah blah, supporting the Republican whatever. You know, it's like, I know it's going to 500,000 other people.
Right.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
And then I get irritated because I'm like, you know, I understand what you're asking, Mr. Ron Paul, or Sarah Palin, or somebody else that sends me stuff like the Republican side. My question is, I got to beef this. Why aren't you doing it? You want money to get elected. Why aren't you doing anything now? You're in Congress. You know, and it's like, oh, we don't have the answer would be, well, we don't have a majority. Then you ought to be raising hell. There will be blood on the floors of Congress
You know, it's amazing because you know it used to be that when you had an issue that you wanted to promote, you went around and you tried to get folks that would support you in a vote. Today, everything costs money. It's all about money, and I don't care who they are. One of the reasons why I stopped being an NRA member is because every time they communicated with me, it was a request for money. It was no longer, well, we're going to support this bill. This is what this bill is about. But you know, give us. We need, you know, $5, $10, $25 donations to support this bill. And I just said, you know, hey, as soon as they start asking for money, first of all, you can't get blood from a stone. I haven't got any money to give you, so you know, don't bother asking.
Well,
You want my support, you want my vote, fine, but I can't give you any money.
I understand that you want support, but it's just like, look, on the news today, the federal government is dumping illegals from Texas into Arizona without talking to the state government, just doing it. Now, where you may not have in the Senate, our Senate, for example, we're talking about, you may not have a majority. Why aren't you on the floor of the House of Representatives, the Senate, or something, going, this is not right? But no, you look at C-SPAN, and there's half the seats are empty.
True.
You know, or more. It's like you are bringing illegals across the border, or they're swimming across the border. They're dumping thousands of illegal immigrants picked up in Texas, and the Texans say, oh, it's because they're overwhelmed with numbers. And they're just driving them into Arizona and just letting them off the buses. without the people in Arizona being even asked. Well, maybe if you close the stupid borders, but we can't do that, you know, because that would upset the Hispanic vote.
You know, a little anecdotal thing about the borders. It just so happens that I have an acquaintance that's a border guard down in Texas, and he's got a relatively responsible position. He's got seniority, and he goes out every day, and he sits in an SUV, a Chevrolet type Blazer type looking vehicle.
Yeah.
And he says, I sit on the computer all day long and play video games. That's my job. I go out and I sit on the border in this car, and out of sheer boredom, I just sit there and play video games all day long. This guy gets a good buck. He gets a good pension. Where's the border security? You know, I mean, these guys, he's involved in a video game. There could be half a dozen guys slipping by his vehicle, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, it isn't a question of making more laws either. It's just a question of enforcing the laws that are already in existence.
Well, here's the deal. If they're saying right now they got these women and children are crossing the border in such numbers that Texas cannot handle them, so they're shipping to Arizona. Well, that another country's women and children are not my responsibility. I'm sorry. I'm not.
Well, if Eric Holder has his way, have you read the new one about what is his title? What is it? You know, the district attorney, not district attorney. Anyway, Eric Holder, you know who I'm talking about, is proposing that we assign lawyers to these children of immigrants that are coming across to protect their rights, because they don't have a say. They're not adults, so they can't vote. They're not adults, so that they can't protect themselves. And he wants the Department of Justice to appoint lawyers to the children of immigrants. That's taxpayer funded.
Here's the thing. You got people flooding the border. You're not, as a government, they don't have the best interests of the citizens at heart. They're concerned with votes. You know, I don't care what they say. You know what the deal is. By supporting this, they get the Hispanic vote and they keep in power.
That's true too.
And that's the whole basics to the thing. You know, there's thousands of people starving across the world. That doesn't mean I want to open my borders up to all these starving people. I'm sorry. The world sucks. You know, life's that way.
Yeah. It's this compassionate bleeding heart type of legislation that's dragging this country down. No, I have a great deal of empathy for people that are in other countries that are oppressed and that would like to come to the United States. However, it's just not possible for this country to support any more people on taxpayer-funded programs. And this feel-good, bleeding heart, pardon the expression, liberal way of thinking is dragging this country down.
You can only give so much, and it becomes the responsibility of somebody else. There was a thing I read one time was talking about in the Middle East, talking about Egypt and some of these other countries, and it's always the America, it's always the Jews, it's always somebody else's fault. Maybe it's your culture where you restrict 50% of your population. You know, maybe it's the fact that you live in the 13th century that is at fault, and not the fault of somebody else. You know, it's like there was for some reason it reminded me, there was somebody posted a thing on Facebook, and I reposted it. It was funny. A guy is standing in a store, and a woman behind him in line is speaking in a language other than English.
I read that one.
All right. Well, she says she's speaking Navajo. If you want to speak English, go back to England, right? But I started thinking about that, and I did a little research. The American Indians came over from Siberia between 20 and 25,000 years ago, something like that. And they got what they call Proto-Amerid. And then you get back to there's some of the Paleo-Siberian, and that people in some of the Aleuts up in Alaska, the northern part of Alaska, still speak it. Everybody immigrated from someplace else. So if you still like Navajo, well, yeah, but your Navajos, you shoved out whoever was here before you. Right. And at some point, maybe, you know, whoever came at 25,000 years ago, whenever they came at 20,000, they shoved down whoever's ahead of them.
Right.
And if you stop and think about it, it's the grand dance movement of human beings through history. There was a thing where they did a mitochondrial DNA test on this group of people. It supposedly was just a random group of people, like random volunteers up in like New York City. But they had an American Indian, and this girl, her grandparents had come from Greece. And they were separated like, there was like a 13,000 year or whatever separation. What it was that way back when, thousands and thousands of years prehistory, part of a group had split off, and part moved down into Greece, and the other part continued across Siberia and down into the Americas and down. So that through DNA they can say, well, you guys were related, you know, how many thousands of years ago. That these were just migrants. These people that moved up and they shoved some. You know, the original Italians were not who's there now. They got shoved out or overwhelmed. 5,000 years ago, when it was. I was reading this book about it was about high speakers, is Proto-Indo-European, and how this group of basically horse barbarians, moved into the Italian peninsula, 2000 BC, and shoved out whoever, and they look at that by the pottery and stuff like that. Is that all of a sudden the culture changes, and that the culture that overwhelmed the others is the descendants of the people that's there now. So what happened before? Those people that was there before, they're gone. So this, well, we drove somebody out. Well, somebody drove somebody else out. That's the way it works. And the same thing with starving people. I mean, it's like in the Sudan. Well, maybe if you didn't live in a desert, and people go, well, it's not their fault. Their ancestors were shoved there. That's not my fault.
Those ancestors were moving from place to place, and maybe you should follow suit.
But the thing is, if you here's my classic example, and I got in this big argument this neighbor of mine the other day about this. She couldn't understand the way my thoughts. There was this island down in the Pacific, and they have fished all the they fished out all the waters around the island, so it can no longer support the population. So they had dug big ponds in order to raise a fish called a milkfish from China. It was like similar to a catfish, can live in just silty water, right? So it could raise enough food to feed the people. My thought was, maybe if you're on an island in the middle of the ocean and you no longer can support the people by fishing, that maybe you got too many people. Just my opinion. It's like, oh no, let's build skyscrapers on the island, and we'll build skyscrapers that hold fish so we can hold 1 billion people on the island. That makes no sense.
It's true. There's that island in the South Pacific that's the water is rising, so it's given them last land, and they went to the United Nations saying we've got to do something about global warming. Well, we know nothing's going to happen about global warming, so they're going to stay on that island until they've got one guy standing on one toe with his land. Well,
look, here's an example. It's up there. It kind of with the Canadians. It's a place called Greenland. And was settled by Vikings during a warm period on the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But when it cooled off, guess what? They ended up dying off. I'm sorry. You're living where you can't grow food anymore, and you're overwhelmed by ice and bad weather. I'm sorry. If we were living...
But if they just stuck around, it'd warm up and they'd be able to grow food again.
Yeah, in a few thousand years, but
just hang in there, guys.
It's so like we were talking about New Orleans earlier. Hello, you're below sea level.
Oh, I know. That makes no sense to me at all. If you look at the world's population, it's something like 90% of the world's population lives within 50 miles of the ocean.
Yes.
And I mean, I often cite, because I live next to the ocean, I often look at these houses that are being built on the ocean. You know, their summer houses, their summer residences, and I think to myself, you know, they have erosion problems, and there's this, that, and the other thing that's wrong with being next to the ocean.
Yes.
Why are you building here? You know, what is the draw? And why are you so stupid that you're building a house next to a place that could slip into the ocean in a matter of a few years?
Right.
Or in a place like New Orleans. Like, why are they building houses in a swamp when they know that
I covered this earlier.
it doesn't make sense?
Well, you know, I covered this earlier, and I agree it don't make sense. But the French Quarter was the first high ground as you move up the Mississippi that you could put a port, that you could put docks in and put warehouses and that sort of thing. All right. New Orleans grew up around that. The reasonably, there's no reason for New Orleans to be where it's at other than culturally, because the French Quarter, by the way, which is the only part that wasn't destroyed by the hurricane. Why is that? Oh, because it's above sea level. Hello.
Yeah, you know, the city of Galveston, Texas, is all but about 3 foot above sea level. They had a flood. Now, see, why can't people learn from history? They had this flood back. I can't remember when the date was, but it was many years ago. They wiped out the city, and they go and rebuild the city in the same place.
Was that there was a big loss of life. One hurricane. There was a bunch of guys who. It was in Galveston, it was Florida. They were working. They were vets, most of them from the First World War, and there was a train washed away and stuff. It was low ground. Might have been that same storm. I don't remember. But you know, I agree. Years ago, I took a course in environmental geology, and what I remember is they had a view from space, from satellite, of a floodplain. So it's so far up in the air that trees looks like just a green scum. That's how far up, you know, a couple hundred miles. And you can see there's the river, and then there's this flat area on both sides of the river. That's the yearly floodplain. And then there's a little step, and there's another brown flat area, and that's the 20-year floodplain. And then there's another step, and that's the 50, and there's another step, and that's 100. Well, people go, oh, the flood washed my house away. I go, well, you're living in a floodplain, knucklehead.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the satellite map. It looks just like, you know, after a storm, you find where the waters run. It's washed sand down. It makes it's different layers, like a layer cake almost, and it's cut through. And that's what it looks like from 300 miles up.
Yeah.
Say, okay, and that level there, oh, that's a 100-year floodplain. Every 100 years, and at that distance, you can't see trees, you can't see roads, you can't see human structures. You're seeing the earth, and the earth don't care. All this is a water course, and every 50 years, 100 years, it washes everything away. It's there.
Sure. Well, look at the whole course of the Mississippi River, almost from Minnesota all the way down to New Orleans. You see people building on the banks of the river. And, I mean, even huge industrial complexes. And every couple of years, we hear about all of these houses and places getting flooded out. And I just, to my amazement, see them get rebuilt in the same locations, and I fail to understand the logic behind that.
Because Chester, if you pull back 300 miles in the air and look down, they're on a floodplain.
No. I mean, how simple is it to look at the mistakes that people have made in the past to see that that's not a good place to build. I mean, how simple is that? You know, there's an old Spanish philosopher that once said, those that are going to repeat the mistakes of the past, those that ignore the lessons of the past are destined to repeat them. And
Yep.
and we keep doing it. And, I mean, the whole world keeps repeating these mistakes that have been made in the past. And to me, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And it not only boils down to where we build our houses, but how we conduct our government and how we conduct business. The mistakes of the past are there for us to learn from.
Well, that's
True.
We were talking about that earlier about you got people voting for president or whatever that if you walk up and you ask them who's the vice president of the United States, and they can't tell you.
Yeah.
Well, evidently they are so damn stupid.
Yeah.
I'll do it this way: so ignorant. There's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. They are so ignorant. But
well, ignorance is a good word. Ignorance is a good word. Of course, the basis of the word is ignore.
To be that ignorant,
Ignore
you have to
knowledge.
Right.
But if you ask that same person, who's the cast, who's all the characters on Game of Thrones, they can just rap it out to you.
Right.
About some movie star, all about their life and all that, but they can't tell you who the Speaker of the House is. They can't tell you who's the leader of the Senate.
Boehner.
I just happened to see something. There's a guy that comes on. I'm not a tremendous Fox News fan. I don't watch it religiously like a lot of people, but I caught this thing on Facebook. It happened to be, and there's a guy by the name of Jesse Waters that comes on the Bill O'Reilly show occasionally. Has this little blurb that he does called Waters World, and he goes on to college campuses and things like that. He asks kids, college kids. Now these are kids that are getting degrees from our institutions of higher learning. He asks them things like, who was in the Civil War? Who did we fight and who fought in the Civil War? Who did we fight in World War II? Who did and these kids haven't got a clue. They don't know who fought who in the Civil War. They don't know who bombed Pearl Harbor in World War II. They don't know who we fought in the Revolutionary War, for crying out loud. I'm astounded at the ignorance of the kids attending college. These are college-educated kids. These aren't high school students.
Well, was this the same guy that was out in California and they had a petition to revoke the First Amendment because people were making fun of Obama? And he was having these people signing, yes, we need to revoke. We're going to. This is a petition to revoke the First Amendment because people was making fun of President Obama. And this will fix.
What's funny is what I found funny about this one particular thing that I watched was that every time there was a positive, there was some kind of attribute, a positive attribute given to a president. Whose name do you think these college kids came up with? Who freed the slaves? Obama. Insane answers to who made sure that Saddam Hussein got out of Iraq? Obama. I mean, anything positive that they could attribute to a president, they named Obama. Which
they're not.
And that to me, I mean, that's dangerous. Frankly, I find that if you don't know who freed the slaves, if you don't know who won World War II, who the president was when we won World War II, I mean, that's sad. That's insane.
Well, the problem that I see it is that there was who was it? Was it Adam West? Not Adam West.
Adam West was Batman.
No, not Adam West. The black doctor.
Yeah. Right, Lieutenant Colonel West.
Well, not Colonel, but anyway, somebody they was comparing and made a comparison between the Obama administration and the Nazi Germany, right? And people immediately went totally bonkers over that. Was like, did you even listen to what the guy said? He was talking about this.
No.
This immediate this repeating what you were just saying. This deification of an individual, and believing whatever that they say without thinking for yourself.
It's a mantra. It's become a religion almost. You I don't know. I'm so confused by the way things are played out here. I'll tell you one thing. If you want to read something interesting, there's a book out called well, now I'll forget the name of it, but it's written by a guy by the name of Saul Alinsky, and it has to do with revolution and change in government. And the first tactic that one will use in an argument against someone of the establishment is to attack that person in spite of whatever he's saying. He could be saying that the sky is blue, but if you don't like the guy, or he's a conservative, or he's, you know, in the government, then you attack him personally. You don't bother to just address the issue itself. You go for the throat of the guy that's speaking. You see, and this is the tactic that we're starting to see. Look at the.
Well, that's a tactic.
This one little thing that we've seen with this Bergdahl guy that was released.
Oh my
by the Taliban here, and you had all of the fellas that served with him saying how he telling true stories about how this guy acted and all of the things that he said and did over the years that they knew him. And what's the first thing that the White House did? They came out, they called them swift boaters, they called them liars, they called them. It didn't have anything to do with the message that they were putting out. It was just attack their personage.
Well, they had the one government official come in a tweet about Bergdahl could have walked out because all his other members of the unit were psychotic.
They were psychotic. That was another one, yeah. You see, and this is a tactic that's been taught to people. You know, I'll tell you what. You listen to Hillary Clinton, and this guy Saul Alinsky is her hero. I mean, she moves her campaign, she moves her political agenda with that book. I mean, it's really dangerous. This is nasty stuff.
Yeah,
By the way, I don't mean to change the subject, but what the hell are you doing there, Ron?
Before you say that, whenever in history have we ever taken somebody's opinion and made it gospel before it was proven? You know, like I'm going to defend Bergdahl, not Bergdahl. I'm going to defend the American freedom of bringing soldiers home who are card-carrying Americans. You know, so you know they brought them home. Everybody agrees. Everybody should be coming home. If he's wrong, should he be going to Taliban court? Or should he be going to American jail?
What should be done?
Should be done in the courts, not on the news.
Right.
Be done in first of all to him is if they would let the military take care of their own, they would do what's necessary. The point was that they released what one of the American generals said was basically 5 4-star generals, Taliban. Mass murderers.
Right.
And the left try to come up and they're trying to say, well, we made prison trains with other government. The government is a terrorist organization. It's not. They murder people. What is it you don't understand? They're barbarians.
Right. So, this guy was not a POW. He was not a POW. When you're a POW, you are held by a sovereign nation that you have a declared war against.
Okay.
The Taliban is not a sovereign nation. They are terrorists. And he was not a POW. He was a hostage.
Right.
Now, I firmly believe that we should have made attempts to get him back. However, you know, the reasons given have been totally bogus.
Yeah,
Totally bogus. And to allow 5 guys as dangerous as they are back on the streets, to me, is a sin against this country.
Yeah, the other guys pointed out is that now they have actually gone on record saying over there, the Taliban, oh, well, we know what to do now. We capture more Americans and we can get more people back.
That's right. You watch. You know, the future, the near future will tell us how dangerous this move has been.
It's it's political. It's all political. They'll come up and say that we don't leave a soldier behind. Oh, bullshit. You got a guy sitting right now sitting in that corrupt Mexican jail. You don't give a damn because there's no votes in there. I believe that everything this administration does is politically motivated. Everything.
Oh, no doubt about it.
The left up here do not care. I don't care what BS they probably put out. They do not care about the military because to them, that is the progressive thing. The whole reason behind the United States is evil because we put our military force out there. We try to put our culture on somebody else. It's to even the score on the progressive view is to level everything so the United States is no more powerful than anybody else because we are not more important, we are not more powerful, our culture is not any better. Well, I beg to differ that my culture is better than a Taliban where you slash women's noses off.
There is moral authority in the United States, and I'm a foreigner saying that.
There is. You know, and all you have to do is look at the earthquakes in Pakistan, the tsunami in Indonesia, and you see that our military isn't necessarily just an armed force. That it's a support mechanism. It's a support mechanism for an awful lot of people throughout the world.
And I have to give some thumbs up here to Mr.
That's a good point.
To Mr. Canadian here. I don't know if you remember this during the hostage thing in Iran in the 80s.
In the 80s, yeah.
One day, all of a sudden, Canada turns up with a bunch of embassy personnel Americans. They then provided them with Canadian passports to come out, right?
Yeah, what other country would do that?
Well,
that movie Argo. That's an excellent movie, by the way. It's very. It
was funny because the Canadians is like, what? What are we supposed to do? Are you fucking insane? We think we're going to sit there and turn them over to you barbarians?
You know, that was real proof that the Canadians are definitely our allies.
And
what they did that in that incident was really that took a lot of guts.
The Brits at the British embassy had actually when they took the American embassy, they'd actually went the full kit and they were on their way with fixed bayonets to take it back, and they got called down because there was too many thousands of people turned up. It had been a bloodbath. But look, I'm sorry, you start talking about culture. Look, damn it, I know who the civilized people are, and it's and excuse me for being this way, but it's the United States, it's Canada, it's Australia, it's New Zealand, it's all the old Britain, it's all the old British colonies that have a moral
authority Say it for what it is.
So if you get bad guys after you, you know that you can turn around and you can go to a Canadian, American, a British, a New Zealand, Australian embassy and know that they're not going to turn you over to the bad guys.
Right.
I wouldn't go to the French embassy because they're liable to turn around and trade you, depending on who's in power.
I heard it said recently that all Frenchmen are Vichy Frenchmen, and if you know anything about World War II, you know what that means.
Yeah.
Was that mean that there were German sympathizers?
Vichy became president of France when Germany invaded it.
Oh, and he made the deals.
And he made all the deals with the Germans that gave. Yeah.
You know, but then at the same time, you got I was reading this thing was talking about the American Revolution, and that there was a good percentage were loyalists, which, if you stop and think about it, if you get away from all the flag waving, the American Revolution was a civil war. You know? Because you had brother against. I mean, look, Benjamin Franklin's son was a governor and is a loyalist.
Now, what is the Revolutionary War? You just said it wasn't the Civil War, so it happened in the 1800s?
No. The American Revolution, when it fought the British, was actually a civil war when it started off.
Oh.
It was. Remember it was British citizens fighting against the British government. When they at the Battle of Breed's Hill, or they call it Bunker Hill, the flag that was flying, I believe, was the Grand Union flag, which is was the striped flag with the Union Jack in the corner.
Well, the first true American flag was one that had, and I just got done reading about this. It had the eastern white pine tree on it, and the reason was because the English were taking all of our wood, they used to call it the King's wood.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it was the best wood for making ships, wasn't it?
Making masts, yeah. And they used to mark it with the King's, what they called the broad arrow, I know a lot about this because I'm living up here in New England where most of this happened, and people talk about the Tea Party and all that business being the taxes on tea and all being one of the instigations of the revolution, but in fact the taking of the natural resources, these big pines, was really more important to the settlers, the colonists, than was the tax on the tea. I mean, after all, if you didn't want to pay tax on tea, you just stopped drinking tea.
Yeah, but that whole thing, if you stop and look at it and realistically, they were a bunch of leftists. All the guys that pushed the revolution, the agitators, they were all you know what I'm saying? They were not conservatives at all. They were
well, they were more anarchists than anything because we didn't have a government. I mean, we really had a kind of a hodgepodge of people put together for a government, and in 1776, when all those guys signed the bottom of that Declaration of Independence, they were more anarchists than anything because there was no federal government to replace the English king,
Yeah.
They just were. So when you hear somebody talk about the Tea Party and how they're anarchists, well, maybe so. Maybe that's really what it's all about.
Well, it was. A lot of it was built up. It was. They call the Boston Massacre, right? Well, excuse me, you had a bunch of British soldiers with a bunch of drunken mob attacking them. I'm sorry. If I was a soldier, I'd have probably shot too. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's like, oh, what are they supposed to do? Get their ass beat because?
Yeah, the ultimate sacrifice, right?
Oh, it was a bunch of toughs. It was that Boston Massacre evidently was a bunch of drunken rabble. They were the agitators had fired them up, got them drunk. You had a British patrol that was basically trying to defend itself.
Yeah.
It was not a massacre. That's all made up. Yeah, they fired their weapons, but they even actually had a trial for at least two of the British soldiers. And I believe it was one of the Adams, John Adams, one of them that actually defended them. You know, it was, but you know, it was all politics. That was all made up. That was all agitators and the anarchists, as you would say, Chester, and other stuff just were pushing that, firing the flames.
Yeah. And you know, you talk about booze.
Look, the British were, their soldiers were protecting us against, they were keeping the French out, the Spanish out, and all that. They wanted monetary support for that action. And we didn't want to pay it.
Right. Yeah, and you know, I often think about this tea, the reasons for the American Revolution. You know, we talked about the tea, we talked about the pine, and you talked about the drunken mob taxing the guys' booze. That was really the last straw. When they started wanting to tax the guys,
straw.
Yeah, right.
That started the whiskey rebellion within the United States after the 1780s, was it?
That was 82, yeah.
Okay,
1782.
that was Americans fighting Americans because they were.
They tried to tax the booze, and that was in outside of Pittsburgh. That was Western Pennsylvania. The whiskey rebellion took place. Yeah. But don't tax my booze. You can tax my feet, but don't tax my booze.
Well, see, you think people are bad, can't tell you who's in the Civil War. Try to ask them about the whiskey rebellion. They got no, you know.
Yeah.
You want to hear something about taxes? Your gas down there is around $3.70 to $3.90 for a gallon of gas.
Yeah.
The math was done this morning by me and my father-in-law about how much gas is in Canada in American prices. $8 a gallon.
Wow. Well, you know, we talk about, you know, you can talk about the advantages in some of the countries. I often hear people cite the Scandinavian countries when it comes to their health care and their social welfare benefits and things like that. People you know, get a lot more from their government than they do here in this country. But these people are paying $11 a gallon for gasoline because of the taxes.
Yeah, exactly. And on our smokes and on our booze.
And on the booze. Yeah, yeah. Hey, living up here in New England, we have, even to this day, there are folks coming down from Canada and loading up their cars with cartons of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Because they're cheaper down here than they are in Canada. It's a big problem on our border right here, I think. It's what they look for most.
I want to say something though. The one question I got time and time again down in North Carolina was that everything's paid for in our healthcare system, and that's factually untrue. What's paid for in Canada is life-threatening diseases and life-threatening stuff, and stuff that'll stop you from working. Those things are paid for. What's not paid for are cosmetic issues, laser eye surgery, teeth, this and that and the other thing that you could live without.
Right.
Well, I don't know if you can live without teeth, but you know what I mean, right?
Sure you can. I haven't got any.
So
I've got some. I got a few.
But you know what I mean. So it's not across the board free health care.
Right.
And that's a misconception.
No, I think I think the example that a lot of people want to use for the Canadian healthcare system is the fact that it's a single payer system.
It's a
Uh,
government insurance.
yeah, right. That's what I mean. It's government paid for. Um, that's the example that's the the glowing example that they want to use. Um, and it hey, I do think that it's a good thing to have health care for
It's a fantastic thing, and for the Americans, the way the Americans look at the world, and we said the moral authority earlier about about if you are living in your medieval state and doing things to your people. Yeah, I'm gonna say we because I think that we're so close. But we're gonna go over there and we're gonna make sure that your people are safe, or this and that and the other thing. But the thing is in the United States, you have all these people who are they don't trust the North, or they don't trust the South, or they all don't trust the government. There's no way in God's green earth that anybody in the States is going to make a sensible healthcare system work unless the government is doing the insurance on it. Like all these different the insurance companies charging people, like forcing people to pay for your insurance every month. People can't afford that. It's ridiculous to think that was even thought of.
Well, I don't know why the example of automobile insurance isn't given. Most states nowadays are what they call no fault. That means even in order to register a car, you have to prove that it's insured.
Yep.
Okay. Now, when that came about, and I remember when it came about because a guy by the name, well, now I'll forget his name, but he only recently just died. He was a senator from Pennsylvania. Came up with the idea originally back in the 60s. And as soon as it was instated, as soon as it became mandatory to carry automobile insurance, rates tripled. I mean, as soon as the insurance companies realized everybody has to have it, they automatically gained customers. So they just raised the rates to whatever they could, whatever the Public Utilities Commissions would allow. They raised them right up to the limit. And this is what's happening with our health insurance here in this country. Now insurance companies realize everybody's got to have it.
Yeah, and if we
have to have it. So, and it's not government paid for, but it's government mandated that you have health insurance.
Yeah.
So what do the insurance companies do? They
buy the rates.
I can tell you right now, my rates went up 16% and my coverage went down.
Yeah.
I can tell you I'm a perfect example of exactly what is going on.
And what would have happened if the government ran the insurance?
Well,
it would have been legislated.
Our government is so top-heavy right now. It is the largest employer in the country. Our government is the largest employer in the country. It's so top-heavy. There's so much graft and corruption and waste in our government that it can't run efficiently. Nothing that they do can run efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why people want that.
No, you remember when the government took over the one of those a Nevada whorehouse and they couldn't keep it running?
When they took over what?
It took over a house of ill repute in Nevada.
Oh,
and they couldn't make a profit.
They couldn't make a profit selling pussy.
It was like the government could sell. They could take a whorehouse over, sell the services of the whores, and you can't make a damn profit of it.
There you go. Hey, man, boy, talk about a perfect example.
Yeah.
Well, I've had my dealings with local and state government. I became the chairman of the planning board here in town, and I also am a certified code enforcement officer for land use regulation through the state. And what I see that goes on just on the state level as far as waste and just waste, just plain old people blowing money, is just astounding. And why people put up with it, I have no idea. I can't figure it out. Why there's not a revolt in this country, I mean an armed revolt against the way things go on in this country, it surprises me. There's just so many people with guns out there. I can't understand why people are sitting on their haunches allowing this crap to go on over and over, day after day, in every aspect of our government.
Yeah, I think
From
of
education
myself.
From education to the environment to immigration to, it's just astounding that the corruption and waste that goes on. It's just, and to for somebody to stand up and say they want to make another government program, you got to be out of your mind.
Well, as long as they can get away with it, that's just more, like you said, grafting for them. It's more jobs, it's more money they can cash away, because all they're worrying about is getting elected.
Sure.
As long as they do two terms in Congress, and you're good for life, something like that.
Yeah. Here's a good way of gauging just what's wrong with the government. The fact that the counties that surround Washington, D.C. are the wealthiest counties in the nation. Now, these are all people mostly that work for the government, that are involved in government jobs. And they are the wealthiest communities in our nation. That's wrong.
Yeah,
That totally twists the whole idea of civil serving around. That's not what civil service should be about. You know, Ben Franklin said we should not be having politicians, professional politicians, in our government. We need bakers and butchers and lawyers, carpenters and shopkeepers to be in the positions in our government.
Yeah, so they could stand up to the rich.
So they can stand up for the rights of the average citizen, yeah.
Exactly.
But instead, you got a perfect example. You mentioned Hillary Clinton earlier, and I'm like, what has she done ever? A professional politician, a lawyer that, from my understanding, got kicked off the Watergate committee for ethics violations. She slept with a former president. She was a talking head mostly, but because she has connections, it's like, oh, we'll make her a president. Well, to me, what's the difference between that and Joe Biden, it's like,
she's as opposed to Joe Biden.
No, I'm saying that what qualifications do these people have for their job, other than being a politician?
Well, Hillary Clinton, the Clintons are very powerful. Let's face it. The money that's behind the Clintons is just phenomenal. So that's what makes her what she is.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's like they're talking about the VA administration and who should be, and they said, well, strike this politician. Hey, maybe you put somebody in charge that's run a business.
Right.
You know,
that's where the third party should be.
Well, this has always been a problem in government, and that is putting people in charge of government institutions that aren't qualified. You know, and probably one of my biggest problems with the Health Care Act itself is the fact that it was written by people who really have no experience either in financing the health business or have any idea of how the health care business runs at all. I mean, Catherine Sebelius has no freaking idea how healthcare. She was inexperienced, but she was a political appointee, and that's the problem with every agency, the EPA, the Housing and Urban Development, everything is headed up by people who really haven't got the experience to know how. Since Shinseki was probably a great general, I really don't know. But the fact is, he didn't know how to run a healthcare program. You know?
You can sure kill people, though.
Well, I understand he was responsible for the surge in Iraq, which was very successful. It was his idea, that the surge was his idea, and that was very successful. So why not put him in a position of commanding or being in charge of that kind of a project? I mean, I know we don't have anything going on like that today, but I mean, put people where they belong.
Look,
and not just
a national carpenters board, government level. It would make sense to put an experienced carpenter, spent 40 years in carpentry business, in charge, and not some guy that used to run McDonald's.
Well, OSHA, you've got OSHA, which regulates businesses like the construction business and things like that, and I know for a fact, because this I deal with on a daily basis almost, that the people from OSHA that come on a job site to inspect safety regulations haven't got a clue as to how construction is actually supposed to happen. They don't care about productivity. They don't care about the construction of the building itself, but they do care about the regulations. All they care about is getting points and feathers in their cap for citing people for violations. I've run into that, again, on a daily basis almost in some projects. And these guys, I say guys, most of them are kids. They're not 30 yet, and they've got appointed positions. They haven't had to know anything but that book of regulations. So they don't really know that when you are told that when you're above 6 foot you have to strap on a safety harness, that safety harness actually becomes an obstruction and becomes more of a danger to the people using it than what its purpose was, to stop you from falling. And if you don't have that safety harness on, if you're above 6 foot off the ground, that's a violation. You get fined, and the fines are very stiff.
Really?
The fines are outrageously stiff. They can consume a project. I mean, just meeting the regulations can consume a profit margin on a project in a heartbeat.
I was watching some guys roofing a house yesterday. I don't think they had any kind of harness. The roofers.
Well, then they were in violation. I mean, if you're 6 foot off the ground, you need a harness.
It's not something I was looking for, so I don't know. I just said I didn't notice a harness. All I can tell you is my house has got a steep enough pitch of the roof. It scares me to get up there because it's 2 stories, and it looks twice as far. How come is that, by the way? How come it looks like you're twice as far from the ground from the roof as it is when you're on the ground looking up?
Never look down, Ed.
I'm like, that's a long way down. You don't look that far. I'm standing on the ground looking up.
Yeah, I know.
It's not science. It's just pure determination of not looking down.
Check this out. When I was a kid, my uncle built a fishing camp down the river, and he had telephone poles with 2x4s, made the structure, and then wrapped it with old tin from a barn and roofed it with this old tin. So it gives me and my cousin a bucket of aluminum paint to go paint the roof. So my cousin goes on one side, I'm on the other side, and I started to eave. I worked my way up the grid.
You told us about this. You painted yourself into a corner, huh?
We got this little space about 10
You
foot.
love that story.
Well, we were talking about construction. I still remember that. Like, I looked at him. He looked at me. We're like, oh, well, we got screwed up.
Listen, back in 1971, I took a job in an outfit that did wiring for communication systems. Back then, everything had to be hardwired. There was no such thing as wireless. And I actually worked on the World Trade Center, the ones that came down. And I got up about the 80th floor on one of them, and they hadn't put the sidewalls up yet. So you had plenty of room to walk around, but there was nothing to stop you from falling. If you walked over to the edge, you could. And believe me, when you're 80 stories up in the air and you look down, you don't even hear the traffic. You can see ambulances and police cars going by with their lights on, but you don't hear the sirens. You can't hear anything, and it is some scary. I'm telling you, you look down that far, and it is really, really scary.
Did you catch that on the internet, on the interweb the other day? There was this family was out of some big building. They got like a little balcony with like a glass bottom, and it started cracking.
Oh my!
Now the business came up and they said, "Oh, it wasn't the glass; it was the coating." Well, okay, whatever. But you're standing there with Honeydew and the little kitties, and you're standing 80 stories in the air, on a glass balcony, and all of a sudden it goes crack.
Time to go inside, dear.
I gotta go clean my britches.
I wouldn't say anything. You just see this Canadian disappear.
I always thought they had one of those. I always thought it'd be neat to have like a little recording of glass breaking or cracking, and wait till somebody goes out in one of the things and play it.
That would be a good one.
It's funny because when I would go on the express elevators to go up to these towers where we were dropping wires, and I used to have to ride up with the I believe they were Mohawk Indians, the steel guys.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys on the way up, now these are guys that walk 8-inch I-beams several hundred feet up in the air, and they are working. They're putting rivets in, they're tightening bolts up, they're moving steel into position. These guys were so screwed up, they would smoke marijuana in the express elevators up to the. They were so loaded, and they'd have flasks with whiskey in it, and I swear I think it's the only way they could actually do the work that they did was to get as loaded as they could so that it didn't matter if they fell. That I was astounded to watch these guys work. It just was fascinating. They could walk an I-beam like they were walking down Main Street.
I wonder about that because I was in California. When I was in the Army. I was 400 Leggett. I was working the S3 shop, which is training. I was a tanker. Well, they have what they call a UCOF, which is Unit Call of Fire, and it's their simulator. You go in it, and you got a tank commander and a gunner, and you go through an entire scenario. You're actually, it's like you're inside a video game. We are inside a video game, but you're actually inside a mechanical contraption that looks like the inside of a tank. Okay. The scenario is about 6 weeks minimum. That you go from so everything works to the very end when everything's broke, nothing works, you're firing totally off the seat of your pants, basically. I was working at the S3 shop, and they decided that, oh, you guys got to go through gunnery. Me and my the other tanker was working there. We went through the entire 6 weeks course in about 8 hours, and it was on a weekend, so we were drinking beer. And I got relaxed, man. It was just like normally the stuff that you would take hours and hours to do. I'd be like, all right, fire it up, let's go. And he'd be like, boom, 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 boom. All right, pass that one. Okay, cool. Smell the beer. It was like it relaxed you, so you weren't like you weren't afraid of, not afraid of. No,
you were thinking of one thing at a time instead of having that little bit of danger in the back of your mind.
It's like this, for example, you're firing a situation where your laser rangefinder's out, so you're having to use the auxiliary sight, which has got it's a graduated reticle, right? Then you might be a thing where the computer's down, so it's no longer putting lead into the system. So you're firing at enemy tanks at 2,000 to 3,000 meters. Using an auxiliary sight with a reticle, with your gyros are out. Well, normally you fire, you go through the scenario and you miss, they end up killing you. You might go through it a dozen times before you pass it. Beard up, it was like, all right, fire it up, man. And just all right, you wouldn't even have to think about it. Just put the crosshairs where you think it's boom, he'd blow up.
Instinct takes over, huh?
Yeah. Really, you're going to That's it. You're going to what you should know, and you're not overthinking it.
Right. Instinct takes over. Yeah. Well, that's a good thing to know. Next time I get into a hot situation, I'm just going to get drunk.
There you go.
I guess I've been doing it the right way for a long time then.
There you go.
The worst part about that, if you're modeling and you get beard up and you go, wait a minute, is that wall supposed to glue to that side? Hope the glue's still not set up.
I had, being self-employed all these years, I've been self-employed since '78, and I've had to hire people and get guys to come on the job to help me out. And at one point in time, I had as many as 11 guys working for me. And it's amazing how many guys you'd see in the morning, and you could smell the dope on them, in the morning. And I thought to myself, that is probably the last thing I want to do working with these saws and hammers and ladders, and it's to get loaded and do something like this. So I've never really tried it, But I'm always afraid. I still have all 10 fingers, I guess I'm doing something right,
Yeah.
Well, and my brother-in-law one time had a little skill saw, and he managed to cut right across above his knee.
Oh.
And he didn't cut his leg off, but he had to go to the hospital. And it was like, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah.
It was really? Like, I use a radio.
Right after break.
Yeah, right.
It's like, I know what the answer is. It's like, and Chester can probably support this. It's like I use a radio saw down in the shop to cut boards with, right? That's what it's made for. Well, it's, I don't know, Chester's the one that it slides. It's a slide radio thing.
Right.
So I cut through the board, and I don't move. I let go of the trigger, and I let the blade stop, and then I raise the arm up, and I go. I'm not a professional, so I'm not. So I make my cut and let the blade stop, run down and stop, and then I move. I go and move the board and stuff like that. To me, otherwise, it's how you lose fingers.
Yeah, sure. Well, now everything has automatic brakes on it, so as soon as you let go of the trigger, it's only a matter of a microsecond that the thing should come to a stop. If they're working correctly. So.
Did you see that table saw that's got a sensor, and they were having it running, and they took a sausage and they run the sausages across the blade, and the thing goes pow and stops just like that.
Stops just like that. Yep.
It ruins the saw. Because it basically jams
Oh, those brakes are very bad for the motor. Yeah,
But
they're very bad for the motor.
you
But
put
you
your
know,
finger up there, it won't hardly barely cut the skin on your finger.
I used a saw like that with a fellow not too long ago, in fact, and the problem with them is that if you want to cut something like, we'll take sheets of extruded styrofoam insulation, try to cut that, it won't cut it. The blade will stop as soon as it hits the stuff. So you have to get an old saw out that doesn't have those brakes on them.
The technology is cool, though. I mean, the stuff like I just saw that because they took that little piece of like a wiener or something. It just
a hot dog.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah,
I've seen it too.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Oh, it's cool. Yeah, it is, and you know, I mean, hey, I guess an inexperienced person using a saw like that, it's probably a great advantage. It's probably a good feature on the saw. But for somebody that's experienced and wants to accomplish something, all of these safety features, I gotta tell you, every saw that I buy, whether it's a chop saw or a table saw, the first thing I do is take all of the guards off.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? They do nothing but get in the way. They may be made of clear plastic, but after about a week of use, you can no longer see through the clear plastic to see what you're cutting.
Well,
and so I take them off right away. It's the first thing I do.
I got a lathe, right, and it came with this little plastic shield in front of the tool post.
Right.
That thing came off almost immediately. I mean,
you can't see what you're doing.
I'll give you an example. I got a grinder, a little bench grinder, sharpen your tools on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took off the stupid plastic covers because I can't.
Yeah.
I can't see what I'm doing.
Sure. Take them off. But you know what? Don't have a saw like that on the job and have an OSHA guy come along, because if any of the safety precautions have been taken off of a tool, that's a fine, automatic fine.
But from my point of view, if I'm going to do that and I want to be safe, I'll get a pair of my goggles and put on, because that's the whole idea, is to protect the eyes.
Sure.
And if that stone ruptures, that little plastic guard ain't going to do a damn nothing.
Right. That's right.
But if I'm working around stuff, I'm more worried about my eyes. I'm not too worried about. I mean, I was a machinist for 5 years, 6 years, something like that. I can't remember actually getting injured. You get a little piece of metal stuck. The lathe would toss out little curly hues of metal that's red hot, and they would embed in your skin and sizzle, and then you'd have to pull them out with pliers.
Yeah, right.
But I give you for example, I was a tanker for 12 years. Now that's where we're moving 63 to 67 ton vehicles. I never saw anybody seriously injured in 12 years on tanks. But the reason was, you go to move that tank, the Army taught you the correct way, which was you're going to ground guide, you walk in front of it, you stop, you turn around, and you motion forward, and you stop. You don't back up, guide the vehicle. That's a no-no. I mean, that's just...
sure, it's called respect for the equipment.
You're following the ground guide and you lose sight of them, you stop the vehicle. What'd you stop for? I can't see you. Oh.
It's respect for the vehicle. It's respect for the tool. I was always taught that my grandfather and my father were both carpenters, and I was always taught, respect that tool, because it doesn't care whether it's cutting wood or skin and bone. It doesn't know whether it's cutting wood or skin and bone. So respect the tool.
Look,
and always know your limitations.
It's the same thing with carrying a rifle or a shotgun.
Absolutely. Muzzle control.
You don't point the weapon at anybody. I know, the old thing about the loaded weapon, unloaded weapon. That doesn't matter. You don't point the weapon at a person. That way, if it goes off, look, I was at
How many people have ever been shot by unloaded weapons, right? No, seriously, it's it was unloaded. I don't know how it, yeah,
Hey,
right,
I was at we were at gunnery and we stopped the range, went down to have a after the review AAR after whatever the hell that is. And one guy gets off a tank and the machine gun fires over by his head. Well, yes, when you park the tanks on line, they're supposed to be unloaded.
right.
Luckily, when they were parked on line, they usually elevate the gun tube, and the reason is to get access to pull the coaxial machine gun off. You've got to elevate the gun so you can get to it, and it's also easier if you're trying to climb inside the driver's hatch. The gun is elevated, so luckily it also helps the bullets go over by his head.
Right.
But here's the deal: we did not expect some lawyer to come out and have an investigation of OSHA or something like that, because we knew
Right.
that the sergeant in charge of that tank was going to be talking to the lieutenant, talking to the commander, and that problem would be fixed.
Right.
Guaranteed.
Well, when it comes to wartime and defense of the nation, there's no room for bureaucracy. There's no room for it. So you have the discipline of military training, and that's what you rely on.
Well, it was similar if you worked in a carpentry shop and somebody get injured. Do you need OSHA doing stuff, or do you need a supervisor that you guys that know what you're doing go, what was the problem? How can we fix it?
That's the part of that's what's good about being a good leader. Whenever I had people working for me, I always would I would start them on things that I knew just about anybody could do, and I would look at their limitations, at their skill levels, and I would never put somebody with a limited skill level on something that I knew was dangerous. You really have to, as a leader, as an employer, particularly because you're paying workman's comp on these people. You don't want injuries. I mean, look, and I said that to a guy from OSHA one time. Look, I don't want injuries on my job. They cost me money, and I can't afford to have a guy out of work and pay him at the same time and not get any productivity from him. Right. That would be ridiculous. Why would I want somebody to get hurt? Well, so I take the time to find out what their limitations and skill levels are, and apply them correctly.
Perfect example. I'm in Korea. I'm backing a tank up. And this is an M1A1 67 tons of steel, right? Now, when you back a tank up, you take a soldier and he walks about 20 feet behind the vehicle, turns around, faces the person standing in front of the vehicle. He gives because you come left, come right, stop, slow up, speed up, whatever. The guy in front looks at the guy in the back, since you're backing up, mirrors his
hand signals,
and the driver looks at you. Right?
Right.
Well, I'm backing this tank up, and all of a sudden, I just put both hands together and stop. I think it's probably the same thing on any moving vehicle.
A fist and
you go like this, or like you both hands together. Oh, what's wrong? I said, just one second. I walked back to the guy behind. It was Telesner. I still remember that idiot. I said, Telesner. Oh, he was my loader. I go, what are you doing? I'm helping you back the tank up, Sarge. Yes, but what are you doing to my hand signals? Oh, I'm repeating them. I'm going like, I'm in front of the tank. He was repeating what I was doing.
And you're the one who's supposed to be repeating what he should be doing.
Yes.
Right. There is a whole code of signals that you use, hand signals that you use for, like for instance, if you're going to, if you have a crane operator.
Yeah, I worked cranes. I know all this.
There's a whole code of signals that you use, and yep, there you go. And
I got stopped one time by some Air Force guys, and they gave me hand signals. It was like a 4th of July celebration or something, right? And all of a sudden he comes with his flashlight because it's dusky dark. He comes down. What are you doing? You're not following my signals. I go, because you're giving the wrong damn signal, Sarge. Well, this means, I said, not in the Army, don't. That means, in the Army, if I point my flashlight at you and I move it up and down, that means move forward. If I want you to stop, I put my hand over the end of the flashlight, right? And then I blink it. That means you're going to, and you blink it and go up and down, that means you reverse, you back up. This guy's going like up and down to tell me to stop. I'm like, I don't know where the hell you learned your damn hand signals. He got all pissed off. He was a SP, like an MP in the Air Force. I'm like, I don't give a damn. Say, you giving the wrong damn signals. We're Army guys out here. You need to learn Army signals if you're going to sit there and ground guide a vehicle. But yeah, the listener was an idiot. I was RNU NCO when I was my unit. That's repair and utilization. That's the you could do all the repairs on the barracks, right? And you got a little credit card. You can go down and get supplies, you know, paint and caulk and glass or whatever. So RNU NCO takes care of all their little BS jobs that you can do by hand. So I get called to the rear from the field because they had to replace tile in the bathroom. They had 2 corridors. So I had to stand there and watch them, make sure they didn't steal the bathroom or whatever. Which was fine with me because I didn't want to be out in the field anyway. Then I was getting ready to rotate home. I'm sitting there, and the first sergeant comes in. He goes, "Hey, Track," said, "don't bother going back out. You're going to stay here." I go, "I am." Well, that's okay. Why? He says, "One of our soldiers flipped out, went totally bonkers, and you got to walk him through mental health." And I go, "No, who is it?" He says, "Guess." I go, "To listener?" He goes, "Yeah." To listener was he was the loader, and they were up on a ridge with like a 500-foot drop into the valley, and the lieutenant drops inside and tells the listener, keep the the driver on the road. The listener waits till the lieutenant goes and he tells the driver to make a hard right. Well, the gunner, who was actually I was back to the rear and this guy was replacing me, so he was in the gunner station. He screams, "Stop!" And everybody sticks their heads out, and they're sitting on a road, and like I say, it was like a 500-foot drop to the right.
Oof.
And so they asked the listener, "Why did you tell the driver to make a hard right?" "I don't know." Okay, so I walked him through mental health, the psychiatrist, and I was there because he could not leave the barracks. I had to walk him to the mess hall and back and to any place he wanted to go. And then they put him out of the Army as failure to adapt. Although he was nutting in a fruitcake. But that was the same one that didn't know the difference between backing a tank up or whatever. I mean, I saw him one time pass out. We were on a radio watch at night, and he was in the hatch, and he started drooling, and he went to sleep on his feet. And a rope of drool come out of his mouth. I'm just sitting there going like, oh my dear God, this guy's on my crew. Oh! We were going through a defile in Korea. This is to listen too. In Korea, they have what they call rock drops. And a rock drop, you can imagine a defile between two cliffs, right? Really hilly country like West Virginia or someplace.
Yeah.
And on either side of this cliff, of this little defile, you've got a wedge-shaped concrete thing that holds up, I don't know, 500 tons of rock. And the idea is they get explosive charges built into it, and if the enemy comes through, you blow the supports and you drop 1,000 tons of rock down and block the road.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we managed to hit one night. And I was in the gunner station, and I heard the lieutenant drop down inside, same lieutenant, to get on the radio because his remote was broke. And Talister guided him through the gap. I looked up and I saw a number but rock wall coming straight at the gun tube. And all I heard Talister do was up. And I swerved the gun to one side to keep it running into the rock, and we slammed into a mountain, basically, about 15 miles an hour. And somebody goes, "Well, damn, Ed, that didn't really hurt a tank, did it?" I go, "Well, you have to understand, the tank came to an immediate halt. We're not wearing seatbelts. We're still moving 15 miles an hour.
And the walls ain't soft."
Oh,
no airbag.
It broke the tank. It broke the number one ballistic skirt, which is on the front right. It's on a hinge. It weighs about 500 pounds. It broke the hinge on top. And I'm sitting down there stunned. The lieutenant goes, "I'm jumping to the next tank." He throws a map at me. I have no idea, because remember, you're inside a gunner station. You're looking through a little tube. You know, that's your sights. That's it. You have no idea where you're at. That's the tank commander and the loader got their head sticking out. So he abandons me beside the road with a broke part of the tank hanging off. About 2 hours later, his mechanics pulled it off and sitting on my rear deck. And I'm bouncing down the road following a map. We come to a river. It's a pontoon bridge across it, and the pontoon bridge is so narrow that the tracks overhang the bridge at both sides. Whereupon I open the hatch up. I say, "Driver, now look. You ran off the road once tonight." "Yes, Sarge." "I don't know how deep that river is. I would suggest that I'm riding with open hatch. And I might be able to get out. But I would suggest you keep on the bridge." And we get across the bridge, and then smoke starts coming out from under the engine compartment with a 500-pound ballistic skirts riding on top of it. We're back. We stopped the tank. We're back there frantically trying to shift this 500 pound piece of steel. So we open the thing up and find out where the flames are, which was it turned out to be an electrical connection. You got a tank's got 6 12-volt batteries, and they're hooked in series. So you got whatever amperage that is. It's 12 volt, but it's like a bazillion amps. That was a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we get back to the unit at 5 o'clock in the morning. At 6, we started operations. I'm like, this day is gonna suck.
You just had that feeling, eh?
Gotta leave you for a second, guys.
Okay.
But it was right after that I got called back to the rear for to watch the guys put tile down.
Yeah.
I was like, great.
I'm out of here. You're on your own, boys.
I was only 3 days away from going home. Or
Yeah.
4 days, something like that. And I was out in the stupid field. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But even better is I get ready to go home and process out the unit, and I'm on guard duty because everybody else is in the field still, right?
Yeah.
I'm pulling what's called sergeant of the guard, which means I got to walk around to the guard post, and you go down and you check the motor pool and all this stuff. And I realized that my Army time had expired at midnight. My duty was to 8 o'clock in the morning. So now I'm in the Army Reserves in Korea with an expired ID card because it expired on that midnight.
Oh my God.
I'm like, well, this sucks, donkey balls. You know what I mean? And so, I'm sitting there at 8 o'clock that next morning when I got off duty. I had been on, well, from midnight. This is 24-hour duty, by the way.
Yeah.
8 days. So I've been on duty for 8 hours, or out of the Army for 8 hours in the Army Reserves in Korea, pulling guard, or sergeant of the guard. And you can imagine I'm saying, well, I'm ready to leave this place. This really sucks.
Yeah.
So I go to in order to finish the processing out so you can go and leave,
Yeah.
you had to go to Camp Hovey. Well, Camp Hovey is not that far from Camp Casey. I'm talking about 500 yards down a road to the other gate.
Yeah.
But you can't get to the gate with an expired ID card. So I had to go the next day to go down to the center where you get your ID cards, and the computers were down.
Figures.
And they didn't. This was on a Friday. They did not open back up to Monday. So now I'm sitting here. This is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm in the Army Reserves, and they're telling me, oh, well, you can't drink beer because your unit's in the field, and the regulations said you can't do it. Well, I said, screw you. I went and got me a six-pack anyway. But come Monday, I went and got my ID card, went and processed out, and went and found me a plane. I was like, I am so ready to get out of this. That's you're sitting there like, this is like out of a movie, like a script.
Yeah. So what do you mean when you were? So your time stopped at midnight. You got to work till 6 in the morning. So you're in the reserves. Does that just your classification totally changes just on a technicality like that?
Okay. You got in the Army. You got your regular Army.
Yeah.
You got your Army Reserves and your National Guard. National Guard is a state-level militia. Okay?
Yeah.
Your reserves are just that. You're no longer in the active service. You're in the Army Reserves, which means that 1 weekend a month you go Saturday and Sunday for training. 2 weeks a year you go for extended training. That's it. You're reserve.
Yeah.
Now, you can get mobilized, which I was, of course. I'm lucky. I'm so damn lucky that way. But once you go to the reserves, you're a civilian, and you only had to come up and go to drill once a month on the weekend.
Yeah.
And that's only for 8 hours. And the rest of the time you're not working, right?
Yeah.
And even though Saturday and Sunday is just an 8-hour duty. So I'm at midnight. I'm no longer in the Army Reserves, but because I'm a conscientious soldier,
Yeah.
I did my job, and I don't know what the legal aspects are. I have no real clue. I mean, I would assume that because I was given the job just because I went to the reserves, I would be considered a reserve on active service, which is in 2001 I got mobilized. That's what that was. You were active. You were mobilized. So you were an Army reservist on active service, which is all things considered. You were on active, but you weren't regular Army. You were reservist on active duty. So situation like that, it's best just continue mission, keep your job. You know, I mean, what am I going to do? Run away and hide? You know, it was just
till 6 and then pop your head up and go.
Well, you know, it's like if it legally probably, although I went into the reserve side, since I was still in Korea, I was considered.
On active duty.
I would think in a court of law they would go, why did you walk off your job? That would be their view. You know.
Yeah.
And it's something you don't bother asking because it's like this. I was with some guys one time, and we come upon a traffic accident, and there was a cop there, and he had just got there, no ambulance, no other cops, and he was checking the people out. He turned around and saw us. We were coming out from lunch.
Yeah.
A carload of Army guys in uniform. He immediately goes, "You block traffic there. You block traffic on this other side. You and you do this and that." We didn't argue with him. We didn't question him because he had no legal authority, really. I don't get. Who knows? You know, I mean, I don't know how that works, but under the situation, he was a cop, and we were military, and we could do what he told us to do. You know, we didn't think about not doing it.
That's where common sense comes in, right? Common sense and common camaraderie. Like you're part of the same team no matter what. Even if he is a police officer, you're in the Army. You guys are.
We knew how to block traffic. You walk in, you stand in the center, you put your palm up, stop. Oh, well, what's the problem? Don't worry about what the problem is. An accident with the cops taking care of, we're helping them out. I mean, you know.
And even if you weren't an Army officer, I imagine if he really needed a civilian and he saw somebody with a clear set of eyes instead of, you know, you look into somebody's eyes, you can see intelligence sometimes, you know, and you just say, you do this, and hopefully they do it, you know?
Right. Well, there's a thing where the cops can actually, I forget what the term is. It's basically they can grab a civilian and make them help. But the thing is, the military, you're so used to it that, okay, that's like, there was a train wreck. Now we're so theoretically talking about trains here sometimes.
Yep.
There was in Germany there was a passenger train derailed in front of an Army concern, and there were people killed and severely injured because you know the half dozen passenger cars were all mangled up.
Yep.
But it was probably the best place if you had to have an accident. It was dead in front of an American Army compound.
Oh.
And so immediately, loudspeakers around post was like, everyone, all medics, everyone with you have to understand in the Army, they have what they call combat lifesavers. And that's like, they want every crew to have one combat lifesaver. And he's not a medic, but what he's done is you're given. I was a combat lifesaver. It's basically beyond the basics that you learn in the Army, you have a combat lifesaver bag, you have a splint, you have things for tourniquets, you got things for heavy duty bandages, you got what's a little
bleeding. Yeah, keep them alive kind of things.
You keep them alive until the medical personnel get there. Okay? You got the little thing you stick down the throat, they got a tracheal tube, skull.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about they're like on the loudspeaker, we got an accident, there's a passenger train has wrecked, all combat lifesavers, all medics, all heavy, the 88s, the heavy, things that move tanks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Run, move, and they were running at full speed down there. They were there within 10 minutes, and they had hundreds of people down there with. You had mechanics, you had engineer battalion. I mean, and it was all just worker bees. People could carry and lift and move.
Yeah.
So, there were people died, but you within, probably 10 or 15 minutes, you had probably 300-400 people down there, medical people, you had engineers, you had guys with strong backs.
You had better responders than you could have had if you were anywhere else.
Well, yeah, because, but you have to understand that like a tank crew, every fourth person is a combat lifesaver, and then everybody in the Army takes a common task training, which is splints, how to stop blood, how to give CPR, that the basics.
Yeah.
So you're not thrown off the deep end. Every year you go and you train. You got people acting like injured people. They got a wounded arm. You got and then somebody comes through and looks at it. Make sure you did it correctly. That's part of your task training. Is always the medical part. So I'm just saying that was probably the best place to have a wreck, was dead in front of that. Because you guys got set there and you got tanks that turn over and has to be recovered. You've got mechanics that train to turn multi-turn vehicles up, or you've got of course your medical personnel been trained for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where it helps if you get people to know what they're doing. Gee, the building fell down. Let's have there's a school full of carpenters. Well, that might not help. So kids. But you know what I'm saying? Was a guy a while back. He tried to rob something. He ran into a building. It was like the local police ball.
No, you're right, because they could have crashed that train across from the hospital, right across the street from the hospital, and they wouldn't have had as good a response as they had if the.
You would have the doctors and stuff like that, but see, even if there's Army concern, you had a hospital there, so.
That's an interesting kit you have there, Ron.
Laser Modeling 3, Gillmeister Cole.
I like how it gives you all the interior framing there. You can do the inside as well as the out. It's crazy. I have gotten so fascinated with the inside of buildings now. Instead of just doing a building, I want to do the whole thing. I want to do the inside and the out. And to see framing like that, that's nice.
Have you, Chester, have you thought about
comes at the desk
about a building like that and having like the layout cut it through like the center of the building? So You know what I'm talking about?
No, say it again. I didn't quite hear you.
Where you take a and have it so it's sitting right on the edge of the layout, so it slices through the center of the building.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You know who's famous for that is Ken Hamilton does things like that. He'll put something on the edge of the of a diorama or layout so that it's sliced in half. Yeah.
Well, see, somebody suggested the other day. I was talking about. I got a little pier, and I was talking about adding 6 inches to the side of the pier so I got to put a boat. And somebody says, well, you know what you could do is put half a boat, slice it down the center.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
And I said, well, I kind of like that because you can build the entire everything and show it.
It makes for a lot more work, of course, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole idea is that that's the fun part for us, at least, is doing the little details. That's the
Yeah.
Why are you doing that, Ed? And nobody ever said, I'm doing it because I enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not work.
It's funny because I got into a conversation years ago with a guy by the name of George Barrett. And George,
I know who George is.
Sheepskin Scale Models.
Yeah.
Well, George, when you buy one of George's kits, or what used to be his kits, he's really gotten away from it today. But he's got a very rudimentary suspension. I mean, all they are blocks with squares that you glue your axle to. There's no suspension to speak of, and the frames are very basic. And you put the model together, and you don't see these things that he has. I don't want to say scrimped on, because what it does is it makes for a really quick build for a lot of guys, and I know a lot of guys don't want to spend a lot of time on their vehicles.
Yeah.
But me, being a vehicle modeler, I want to see an accurate suspension and the drivetrain and all that business when I put a model together, And George, he says, well, why do you care? You don't see it when the model's finished. And I said, it's like Ed said, well, I like doing it. It matters to me.
It's like
I got a story about George then that I'd like to share, because when I started the Modelers Guild, I started the Modelers Guild because I wanted to share my modeling, not because I was an English lit doctorate,
Right,
So,
right.
so I sent him an email about his kits and stuff like that, and saying that I wanted to do a review and stuff like that, and he berated me because one of my I's was a lowercase I in the email.
Oh no. Dude,
I never
George is
forgot
kind
it.
of a curmudgeonly old fella. I like George. He's real. He's definitely.
Oh no, I didn't take it bad. I have never ever since that day put a lowercase I.
You learned your lesson.
Yeah.
He actually doesn't live far from me. He lives about an hour and a half away. He lives down towards Portland. But I've visited his shop a couple times, and he comes up this way. He was president of the ATHS Society here and in Maine, and he's a very active guy. So he comes up this way a lot because we have a big place where there's a lot of truck shows and stuff called the Owl's Head Transportation Museum.
Okay.
But anyway, George, I get to see George a lot. In the course of a year, I see him 3-4 times, and he's gotten away from his kits, which I think is a real shame because I think they've filled a great void in vehicles in the scale.
Mm-hmm.
For starters, I love his auto cars and his big internationals, but he's gotten away from it because he got bored with it. He didn't want to cast anymore. So he outsourced that. He doesn't want to package them anymore, so he outsourced that. And now he's gotten to the point where you have to email him and specifically tell him what parts you want. He no longer will put a kit together for you and sell you the kit, but you buy all the individual parts and put them together, because he himself has now gone to doing a lot of what you do, Ron, and he just kind of travels around and helps people put their layouts together, and will do a section of a layout for a guy, and he wants to model. He doesn't want to be a manufacturer anymore.
Stuck in his own shop with nobody there to talk to, what have you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He does a lot of great work, though. There's a place not too far from here called the Boothbay Railway Museum that has a lot of old narrow gauge pieces that they bought over the years, and they put together this little railroad, and tourists can come in, spend a couple of bucks and take this little ride on the narrow gauge railway, and they have a layout there that's all done volunteer work, and it's really quite beautiful. And George contributes a lot to them free for nothing. So he's philanthropic as well as helpful, and he's just interested in modeling. He no longer is interested in being a model producer.
Yeah.
So I like George, but like I say, he's quite curmudgeonly in his own way. He's kind of a old school New Englander.
Oh, I'd agree he's old school. I wasn't insulted when he said that to me. Like I said, I took his suggestion, and he never messaged me again. He never replied to another email either. But that's okay.
I'll tell you what. You want to know about trucks? He is the man to ask, because in a former life, he used to be a rep for a lot of large truck manufacturers. That was what his occupation was.
Ain't that the way? Ain't that the way?
Yeah, he knows everything there is to know about every model of. When I say model, that is the auto car. Or internationals or Macs, and he knows everybody in the business too. He's a great resource. He really is.
Yeah.
Plus, he's been on this Maine coast all his life. He knows everything there is to know about harbors and ports and anything maritime as well. So I never pass up the opportunity to talk with George.
I could have used you over here, because I'm in the middle of doing some carpentry stuff that's painting butt.
I've been watching your progress on the Facebook. Your dealings with the electrical and all that business. Yeah.
I didn't want to come into the vinyl in the front, and it's no clapboard house, and it's got it got like this pink insulation, then he put vinyl on top of that, and I've cleaned the thing out. I'm now trying to get in there to all I'm going to do is cut away the wood around the whole fixture and make a plywood plug, secure it. I'll caulk it and put some screws in there to hold it in place. It's trying to get in there and cut the stupid thing.
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you what. I went and bought. There's these little reciprocating saws that you can buy now. They vibrate back and forth at about 20,000 RPMs.
Those work good?
Fine. Yeah. Fine is FEIN is the name of the company that first came out with them, but everybody seems to have one now. And I just went to Lowe's or Home Depot, I can't remember which it was, bought the Rockwell of that type of saw, and it's indispensable. I don't know how I did without it before, and I didn't spend the $200 and some for the fine tool. I bought the $60 Rockwell, and I'm very happy with it. It gets into places you can't believe.
I was sitting here thinking about that very. I live 2 miles from Lowe's, and I was actually thinking about the Rockwell vibrating little looks like a putty knife on almost the end of it.
Exactly.
And I said, I wonder if that would work. What I'm trying to do. And
it may very well. I'll tell you what. Like I said, I find it indispensable. I use it all the time now. And the blades are the one good thing about the Rockwell is that it's a universal a chuck on the thing, so it'll take anybody's blades.
Okay.
Like some of the other manufacturers, I know Craftsman has one.
Proprietary.
The Fine Tool. You have to buy their blades for their tool. But the Rockwell is great. It's a universal hookup, and I love it.
I'll have to
for $60.
I was actually seriously thinking about that because the thing is, I got this little pocket, and I've got about 6 inches by about 10 inches square. My Dremel won't go in there because it's too long.
Right.
And I said, well, maybe that little, what you're talking about, vibrating thing, I could come in straight in.
Yeah.
And just, but what I was going to do, to be honest with you, before you mention that, I was going to take a drill and drill a series of holes.
Yeah.
And
well, that's the old way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the old way.
I know my damn drill going there.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. You know, it's slow going. I won't say that you're going to make a lot of headway with it.
Right.
But if you have the patience to sit there and cut a hole out with the thing, they work great.
You know what's weird is that when I pulled that stuff loose, I found that clapboard is actually a manufactured product. It's like flake board or something.
It's masonite siding, yeah.
Yeah, I thought
masonite clapboard.
This house is 60 years old. I was like, what the hell?
Sure.
I thought it was gonna be wood.
Oh no, yeah, masonite. They've been using that for clapboards for years. Yeah.
One reason, if you've been following Facebook, is the wiring. That's just almost the last of my wiring. The old, it's like it's not plastic. It's like a rope that's impregnated with tar or something. It's
cloth. Yeah, they call it cloth sheathing.
And it's no conductor. So no ground.
Yeah.
Okay, no ground.
Yeah, it's two conductor, no ground.
So what I did was I'd go through and pull one wire at a time and replace it right back with a modern
Romex
14.2 Romex. I don't have to know. I just do one at a time, make sure the power's off, and
yep.
when I needed to, I'd pull a sheetrock free, and I know how to work on sheetrock. I did that. So all that is time.
I'm doing the same thing to my house. I've replaced the second floor wiring and the basement wiring. Now I got to work on the first floor.
Well, see, luckily that mine is what was once called a garage apartment.
Uh-huh.
And my shop used to be a garage until somebody lived here and ran the car through the wall. They pulled they replaced the garage door with a lower wall and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So luckily most of the wiring, or a lot of the wiring, I can get to. I could get to. And the first irritation was because it was downstairs, they just run it any place.
Yeah.
Right? And so I went through and followed my little book that tells the wiring's got to be so from the edge and da-da-da. Do it correctly, because I want to put a drop ceiling at some point down there. I still got my damn I got to run my water pipes. I got about half of those done. I'm running the new stuff in parallel to the old stuff. No, come away, cat. And then I'll hook it up when I get to it.
Yeah. You gotta love working on your own house.
I've got one thing I got left that I haven't replaced is the one wire that's by the sink. Everything else has been completely replaced. So that's good. I keep, the trouble is I keep putting, I put this part off. Is to the porch light. I've replaced the three conductor, the three conductor with ground. I replaced that a long time ago. That went up to the porch and down for my 308 switches. But I didn't want to get into that stupid. I knew it was going to be a pain in the butt trying to get into the wall there where those the last those cables are.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that today. I'm going to go down and get. Now that you said it was good, I like tools. So all you got to do is look at me sideways and say, hey, Ed, go buy a new tool. Okay.
I think you're talking to the right guys with that subject. Now, talking about interiors on the building, you look at this, you see it comes with all those. It comes with a whole bathroom. And this is what I don't understand about these models. It comes with that. It comes with a toilet, a mirror, a sink, and then you flip the page over and it shows you all the stuff in there. But if you look down at the bottom here, right around here, it's got a bathroom wall and a door, and it hides all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't understand how, like, then it comes with all these trusses and stuff, like, you almost feel like you should be leaving the roof off the building.
Well, that's one of those things that people do. They'll do a structure and they have it like putting on an addition. So part of the wall is torn down,
Yeah. I've wanted to do. One of my ambitions is one day to do a house under construction. I did, in fact, it was the first diorama I ever built. I did a post and beam barn that was being built, and I didn't do a good job on it, but I want to go back and do another one and or something like it, and try to do a decent job on it this time.
One of those, we were talking earlier about having a layout cut through a building. You could show all that stuff,
Yeah. But I just wanted to do. I don't even know if I have any decent photographs of that building. It's been so long ago. My God, it's been forever. I put that thing together so many years ago. Yeah, there's one. Oh, that's all out of focus. Bad picture. Nothing.
I tell you what, I did that for the whistle post. I did this one. What was it? A 1/24 scale shed, and I built the whole thing board by board. I mean, I cut the 2x4s so that it was like in real life.
Yeah.
And that was actually fun.
That's kind of what I did on this one. I built the thing board by board and stick by stick. The whole thing is put together like a real barn. There's one.
That's exactly how I got into the hobby. Was I was going blind. Well, not going blind. I'm not blind. I'm severely visually impaired. Let's just say. But and my boss was a Slovak, and he was getting really, really ignorant with me. But that could have been just the way he talked. You never know. But so
there you go. I built this barn half.
Oh, there it is.
I didn't scale the lumber out correctly, and I just kind of slapped it together. Like I said, it was one of the first things I ever built. But I want to do a real accurate construction, and actually just something like a 2x4 wall, like what you got there. Just standard, basic construction, not post and beam. necessarily.
This is my first model.
Wow, what is that? A coal tipple?
It's a coal tower.
Yeah.
Can't move.
And I cut all the wood on a bandsaw at work, and I took, well, not all on a bandsaw. I took a bunch of like we were building stairs. I was a stair builder, so there's lots of strips of wood.
Yeah.
Like when you're doing curved railings and stuff like that, you build it out of strip wood.
Uh-huh.
Or thinned out wood, like in thin strips, and I just brought it home, and I was building it, board by board, just to be able to do what I do at work, in miniature, and
Yeah.
and then I'd give the kids the models and let them play with it, and it's like I was making toys for them,
Yeah, right.
You guys ever do the thing where you build like a model airplane and you go set on fire?
Oh no, we used to stick firecrackers in them.
You go blow it up or something.
Yeah, we'd hang them from a tree with fishing line and stuff a firecracker in them and light them off.
Oh, what is that? What's with that?
That sounds like fun.
It's kind of
Well,
destructive.
when we were kids, you could buy a model, like a 172 scale model for like 80 cents, and we'd buy bunches of them.
Yeah.
Here, eat, God, cat. Are you starving to death?
You'd think. I got these cats that they get locked into the back room here looking for something to eat. They find there's nothing to eat, and the next thing you know, you can hear them going meow at the door.
Yeah.
Well, come on.
We used to have cats, but they were all outside. They were all barn cats.
Actually, I am not a cat person, and this is the first time I've ever had cats because I had an old Dalmatian about 4 years ago, and she died on me, and we moved to a small apartment for a short while there, and all of a sudden the kids started asking for a cat, and the wife brought the cat home before I could say no. So, well, actually, from my recollection, I remember saying no a few times, but nobody else does. You know how that goes.
Yeah, oh yeah. Our last pet was a parakeet, so that's how. I just didn't want to take care of a cat. Oh, look, that's nice. Wow.
That was 124.
Really nice.
That's 124 scale, but I built that. I mean, you have to understand, I'm not a carpenter, so I look on Google and go, what's that? How's that? Oh, okay, that's how it goes together. So I figured that was fun. The downside, if you do that, you go, oh, I like this 124 scale.
Yeah, that's a printed paper. That's printed paper on the brick.
No, move, Tigger. That's blue foam.
Extruded styrofoam.
Extruded, like using a house construction.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Good job. Great.
I'll show you a better picture of that. Hold a second.
Yeah, I've seen that before, Ed. That turned out really nice. I love that brickwork.
Yeah, so do I.
And you just carved that out of extruded styrofoam, huh?
Yeah, I got a picture here. A second.
Yeah, I think I showed you guys one. I did a stone wall out of it.
I mean, it's good stuff.
Nice. It
really is.
I think it works great.
But the problem is the blue carves different than the green, and you go to the green and it's got like depends who makes it or what day they made it. It carves different. So you try one and it won't. You try something else because.
Oh, there's blue, there's green, there's pink.
I like the dowel, the blue dowel. That worked good.
There's pink.
Let's see.
Yeah, there's pink. Owens Corning makes a lot of it.
Pink. Owens makes the pink stuff.
Yeah.
Some
of the cells are tighter together, and some of the in some of the extrusions than some of the other manufacturers. Yeah, you're right. I think the blue is probably the tightest.
The green came out. It was more almost like a cardboard. It was like a pressed cardboard almost. The cell structure it was stringy, sort of. But the blue has got a real tight, crisp thing to it. Let's see. Where am I at? Graphics. No, I'm in the wrong thing. 1 minute. Graphics. There. Structures. There. Share the whistle post. Okay. I've got a picture. This one. Yeah, this is one of the better pictures. This is that's a close-up. That's saw carved from the blue foam.
I think that's the picture that I saw before. Yeah, nice.
And what I did, let's see. What I did, I got a picture, I think, of a.
Oh, he's got the wire brush out. Now we're in trouble.
I'm getting for real now. Doesn't take much.
What is that? A clapboard siding on there?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I learned that from Sierra West Scale Models, that Brett Glonk guy.
Yeah.
He loves to add texture to wood, even if it's just a normal board.
Yes, I do too.
So
I have a little wire brush just like yours at that, and I use what they call a file card.
a file card.
Yep.
Yeah, it's for cleaning files.
You card the file. You like
You card the file, right? It's a. It's just a. It's a. I don't know where you can see that. It's just a stick with.
Oh, the grooves in it.
It's got. No, it's wire. It's got wire sticking up.
Oh, I see.
And normally it's for cleaning your file up. It works great for.
You clean your files off with it, but I use it to do what you just saw Ron doing. It puts a nice lines in wood.
Yeah, I got mine.
Grain. Unfortunately, often in HO scale, you can actually put too much texture onto things.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of times I get a fuzzy look. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Then I have to sand it down, and sanding clapboards is. I've never actually used wooden clapboards on any of my models.
Oh, okay.
I always go with the styrene clapboard siding.
Oh, I see.
But you can do it with styrene or wood. It doesn't matter, you know. Rough it up a little bit.
Here's a picture when I was carving the brick, and what it was on top, I printed out on my printer a 1/24 scale pattern, and I just cut through the brick.
Yeah, nice idea.
Yeah, well, Don Ralton, it was one of those, you know, that was back this thing when Mark up on the Westlake forums, Mark was doing something, and he copied Don Ralton. So yeah, there's no, who knows where it originates, but
who cares where it originates? One of my first articles was about making ground ground cover, not ground foam, but ground cover out of sawdust. Well, I know who said this, and I'm not gonna say his name because he's kind of like a fanboy, and I imagine the little conversation would continue on for years and years to come. But he said, well, that was Dave Frary who made that up, and you should be giving him credit. Well, God damn it, I was sitting on the front porch with a 6-pack of beer, and I had a great big pile of sawdust beside me, and that's how I came up with the idea.
You know what I use
What?
often for ground cover? I'll take the that I have on my sander.
Oh, yeah, the nice fine.
And I get a real fine thing, and I'll dump a wood stain and put it on a cookie sheet, mix it all up so it's all nice and brown, and I've got dirt, and then I'll do a bunch, and I'll mix up some green spray paint, put some green spray paint and mix it up and let that dry, and it makes a great ground cover. And if I want a little coarser, I'll just add wood from the bag that's on my chop saw, and I get a little coarser.
If I want the fine stuff, I like what you get from MDF. It's a really nice texture, small, fine texture.
That's a real fine texture. It's like talcum.
Yeah.
You know what is a great source of dirt is if you go outside and you find ant hills.
What hills?
A-N-T.
Oh, yeah.
Ant hills. And look at the dirt that's around the ant hills. It's real fine.
Oh,
and I'll scoop up a bunch of dirt from ant hills.
You know, I've heard some of the best stuff is around the pitcher's mound at a baseball diamond.
Well, the other thing that's excellent, and I mean really excellent, is if you find somebody that's drilling a well, and you go look at the spoilage that's coming off of the drill from the well. It's usually a wet mud when they're doing it, but scoop some of that up and dry it, and you'll get some great, what do they call that, talus?
Oh, really?
It's a excellent. It's usually ground rock, so there's no organic material in it.
Talus is that stuff that they use for ballast. Isn't that commercial grade ballast?
Yeah.
In HO scale?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
so
you know,
there's a variety of sources for great ground cover.
The point you're making is a lot of if I go outside, there's so much of it's so loamy. It's too coarse.
Right.
My favorite ground material cover is to go to Lowe's and pick up a half a cubic foot for $3 of it's the decomposed granite, the paver base.
Yeah.
And you just sip that. It's gray, yeah, but I mean, I don't put anything down. I don't color anyway, so it's not. I can care less. You know, it's like.
Everything I put down, I usually get the airbrush out and paint it anyway after it's down.
What's that? Or I'll sit there, put it down. I'll put some latex, and then I'll put an AI stain or something else on it. And then I get so many layers of color and.
Right.
There was I did an article. Shows we was talking about blue foam, right, earlier.
Just before we get off the subject, I wanted to say that grout for tile is another excellent ground cover, and the good part about it is you mix it up with water. You can put it on and spray it with water, and it sticks itself, and it hardens itself. You don't have to use any glue on it.
See it, but let's see. That whole row up there is grout.
Yeah, that's good ground cover.
But let's see.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. The styrofoam, right?
No, I was just going to say we were talking about the blue styrofoam.
Mm-hmm.
I have had great results with they stopped handling the blue. Why, I don't know. Sorry, jokers. But Let's see. Favorite forums. Come on, internet. Come on, sometime today. There you go. I'm trying to get to the. Come on. Bless it. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I swear I go to try to show somebody something, and my internet is like it's got stuck in glue. Let's see.
One of the things we have up here in New England is what they call granite dust, and they use it a lot for bases for putting brick patios in. Instead of using a sand, they use granite dust. And if you take the granite dust and you sift it, you get a really nice gravelly looking.
Well, that's pretty much what this paver base is. It's decomposed granite.
Yeah.
And it's actually for laying your pavers. And I sit there and I sift that stuff out, and I can get well,
you can do different textures if you sift it the right way. I have probably 3 or 4 different sifters that I use on 1-pound coffee cans, and I'll get some that's rather large, and then smaller and smaller, and I try to do, and mixing and matching that too. That's the other thing, don't use all one texture as well as one color. You mix it up, different textures on your ground cover.
Well, darn. I hate to go to a website and they don't. It's like I can't find where the article I wrote. What the heck? Did you get rid of it?
Who, me?
No, it was Sean Bronstetter. I probably got a copy on my own website. Let me see. Damn it. Projects, scenery, rock work, style. God, I can't even move my mouse around. I'm losing my mind. Come on.
Must be Hangouts. Oh, well, the problem with going to North Carolina for me is I lost all the things that I really need to use. My camera charger.
Oh, no.
One of my batteries. I know I forgot a few other things.
Oh, no.
But I'll tell you, there's so much going on in the States. I love it. If you had about 400,000 more Canadians there, I'd love it even more.
Okay.
Well, you come to Maine. We got a lot of Canadians living in Maine.
You know what? I'm a marine modeler, so my personal modeling is marine modeling, so you might have something there.
I can't begin to tell you how many folks I have hired off and on over the years that are Canadian descent.
Can you see that?
Get up here in northern New England, there's a lot. Yeah, it's funny too because you talk to folks up here and it's like, well, I'm going to go visit my dad in Montreal this weekend. I got to go up to New Brunswick to visit my family. They all still have family up there. That's interesting, Ed.
I've got it up on my website under project, scenery, rock, something. But that's all blue foam with just all the shape, the master shape, that's just foam that's just been broken with a screwdriver and fingernails or whatever.
Yeah.
I love the way it fractures.
You know, you can do so much with that stuff. I did a very small diorama. That's a boathouse diorama, and I used the blue foam for the base.
Right.
And what I did was, yeah, that's interesting. I like the look of that.
See, I had a.
But I just took the blue foam and used it for the base, and then just started to carve out the rocks. If you notice that the big boulders here are just the blue foam that's been carved.
Oh, wow.
And then I set all these little rocks around it, and then of course spray painted them all the same color, so that it gave the boathouse isn't set right there, but it gives you a good idea how the scene looked, the foam looks when you carve it. Yeah, it's great stuff. You can do so much with it.
I just posted a picture.
Careful though. You got to be careful of it though, because so many things react to it.
Oh yeah,
solvents. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I built one, and I can't remember what I. Oh, how about that? Yeah, you just kind of flicked it away.
Yeah, just you know.
You guys know who Trolls Kirk is.
Oh, sure.
He actually uses CA to his advantage. He models an O scale and cuts his brick retaining walls out of styrofoam like that, and then adds CA to it, so it dissolves like. I'm sure he adds it sparingly, but he adds the CA to it so it melts it away.
Yeah. I think it was Bob Boudreau who recently showed a picture of a fence that had a lot of erosion under it, and the fence fell down.
Yeah.
And that was an accident that he had done with, I mean, just plain old paint thinner will do that to the styrofoam.
Yeah, that's where I came back and I mentioned like serendipity.
Yeah, right.
Let me see. I got a picture if I didn't get rid of it. When I was doing that structure I showed earlier, the one with the carved brick, and probably when I was modeling with beer, you know, not on the layout, but I made a mistake of spraying with a solvent-based paint.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You begin to learn real quick that you made a mistake.
Yeah, especially when I've done spent. I mean, carving the brick is not quick.
Some accidents like that are fortuitous. You can, you know, you get a good result. I painted a building with a plain old spray can of Rust-Oleum.
Yeah.
And I hadn't allowed it to dry completely to cure.
Yeah.
And I painted it with an acrylic over top of it. And the effect was amazing. It got this crackle effect on the clapboards.
Right.
That turned out really cool, I thought.
It was a solvent spray paint with what on top? Acrylic?
And I painted acrylic over top while the solvent paint had not dried completely. It was still actually a little tacky.
So like within the hour.
Yeah, and I got that effect right there.
Oh, look at that!
That's
Yeah,
good.
It was interesting. Now, I think had I left it go, it probably would have kept peeling off. But I oversprayed it with a flat dull coat lacquer, and I sealed that all in once I got the chipping and cracking the way I wanted it. It
on the other hand, if you look at the picture I just posted, that's what happens when you spray the blue foam with a solvent
Paint. Yeah.
paint. It was not happy. And now I just spent a couple of hours carving all those little. You're like, ah!
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first started modeling, I thought I'll be really great. I'll paint some trucks with automotive lacquer. You know,
Yeah.
automotive lacquer and styrene plastic don't mix.
Oh, really?
I ruined a couple of really nice models.
Yeah.
I remember doing that with, well, not doing that, but I heard that pine saw would strip paint off of plastic. So I put a plastic shell in the pine saw and left it for a little bit, brought it out, tried to wipe off the paint. It wouldn't work. So I left it in the pine saw, went in for dinner and forgot it till the next day. Well, when I pulled the plastic out, it still kept all the details and features on it. It was just as floppy, though.
Oh, it softened the plastic? No kidding, really?
It softened it right up.
No kidding. I wouldn't have thought they would do that. I'll be darned. That's good to know, though.
What is that? What is that?
Yeah. And I think that was the car model. I was doing it to the hood. Yeah.
I know. I've put plastic models in. Well, at least I did it one time. I put them in paint thinner to strip them, and when I came back, there was literally nothing there. to solve the whole. I thought to myself, I wonder who would have come in here and taken that model.
Looking all over the place.
It was gone. There wasn't even an indication that it was there. I mean, it was
That's funny.
gone, you know?
That is hilarious.
I'm trying to find, if I can find it. When I made my little 3D printed turbine, I printed some these pulleys. And I can't. That's the worst. My biggest problem is trying to find stuff. It's like flatbed pulley. Okay, did I take a picture of it? Let's see.
The other thing I do is I try to speed things up. You know, I'm a very impatient modeler.
Mm-hmm.
So I do things to try and speed the process up as I'm going. You know, well, let's get to the next step here, you know. And I've placed models in front of like a hair dryer to get them dry.
Yeah.
And literally ended up with a melted Hulk when I was done. Just this droopy hunk of plastic, you know. And especially the little Jordan models, you know, they're so delicate to begin with, you know, that you go, oh, here we go. This is great.
Well, maybe I don't have a picture of it. Whoa.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
This was done. I meant to speed the drying process up.
Did you?
It looks kind of cute, actually.
What did you use?
A hair dryer.
Oh my goodness.
I set it in front of the hair dryer. I wanted to get the paint to dry. It's just.
Oh.
Yeah. That was the end of that.
3 o'clock.
Hey, you know what? Those Jordans are what, you know, $7-8 a piece. You know.
I need to send you some. I've got like 6 Jordan still sitting in the box when I was doing I was going to do HO. You can have them if you want them.
Hey, stick them up on eBay. You know, the guys they're always. I'm amazed at how many guys use them, and I suppose that's why Brian wants me to do this little video, because there's so many questions that people have when you do one. You know,
Yeah.
I was on another site. What is it? The Modern Railroad forums. And the guys are always putting their little Jordan builds up on there. What confuses me is why they have such a hard time with them, though. They really are simple. They're very intricate and they're very tedious work, but it's not hard.
For me, the parts are just too small for me to see, to be able to get them in there. Like I use tweezers. I got a pair of tweezers, but I just can't. It's just
use tweezers, yeah.
Yeah, so tough for me. But I've got a number of them sitting in a tray over here, and I'm gonna hit. Once I start on them, I'm just gonna do them all till they're done.
I was gonna say that's the best way to do Jordans, is if you have a bunch of them, do them all together, because you get into a mode.
Yeah.
You know, this mindset, how you have to think and react to things on them. Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah.
In fact, that's one of the things I point out to people. If you're going to do a couple of Jordans, do them in a row. Do all of them.
Yeah, you get that nervousness out of you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much probably the one thing that keeps you from, from doing good right away is your confidence.
I think the other thing is a lot of guys are attracted to the model itself. Like, for instance, the Bucyrus Series B2 steam shovel or crane, or the Packard 1922 Packard, and they're difficult kits. And to try and start out on a difficult Jordan is really not a good idea. You want to pick one of the easier ones. You know, I mean, there's some. They have one. They have. I think the Model TT that I'm going to be doing for Brian Bollinger is probably one of the easier ones.
Mm.
The Model A one-ton truck is also another easy one. To start out with the easy ones. Of course, how do you know until you buy the damn thing? So.
Have you seen Brian's newest kit firsthand yet?
I haven't, no.
It's the one with the lighthouse, and it's on a little island with another house on it.
I haven't, no.
I'd love to build it. I don't have the money for it at the moment because I just spent too much this spring. But I'd love to build it. He makes a really nice kit.
I've heard, yeah.
And I'd really like to support him more because, like I told you guys before, he was the first company to ever send my Modelers Guild a kit, and he sent 2 kits. So he'll always get a little bit of support from me, along the lines.
Well, he was very generous with me, our first encounter, and I feel the same way. I actually, when I first contracted with him to do a series of trucks for him, the idea was I was going to get one of the kits that the truck was supposed to accompany, and I don't think he ever developed the kit, and it's really a shame because the kit was of a garage in a place called Warner, New Hampshire, and I lived in the next town down from Warner, in a place called Hillsboro at the time, and I was very familiar with the structure. I knew the building, so I really wanted to build it because I knew it, and it has never come to fruition.
Knowing
They ended up
modelers,
paying me.
knowing modelers is probably sitting on the shelf waiting for them to put the lines on the computer.
Right. Well, he did another building that's very close to me here, and this is really coincidental. I had a customer of mine want a boat shed put up in a place called Pemaquid Harbor. And this is one-to-one, real life.
Yeah.
And so I drew it up and I designed this building, and I took it to him and gave him a price. And another contractor, he took my drawings to another contractor,
Typical.
and this other contractor beat my price by, $1,500 or something on a, almost $100,000 building.
Yeah.
And the other guy built it. Well, wouldn't I see Brian Bollinger come up with a kit of that building?
No.
So I designed the building, and now not only did I not get to build the real building, but I haven't built, and the kit's out of production now, so he doesn't make them anymore. But Brian copied the building that I designed as well, which really, it's kind of, oh boy, I lost out all the way around on this one.
That's funny.
I usually charge for my drawings too. My dad was an architect, and I do have some drawing ability just from experience, and I don't have the schooling behind me, but I do design a pretty decent structure, and this one got built just the way I drew it. And it's a shame.
That's too funny, really.
I know. I don't even know if I've ever told that to Brian. I don't think I've ever conveyed that to him. But it's what he calls the sale house.
Might
It's just
actually get one of those kits out of production.
Yeah.
if you told him the story.
Well, I think what he did was he built this kit, and the profits from the kit went to a nonprofit organization. So he only built so many, and when he fulfilled his obligation to the nonprofit organization, he stopped production on the kit. And I must say, I mean, that was very magnanimous of him. It was, a nice thing to do. So that's cool, Ed. I like that.
Well, I was trying to find, when you were talking about melting things,
Yeah, right.
one of those flat belt pulleys I left in the acetone, I forgot about it, and it's actually sitting, I come to think of it, buried in the dirt, because it was like, but anyway, I saw that and said, well, you know what, I need to put I still need to put a belt on those wheels, and see that coming out of the dam, that pipe, that's got to connect up with the turbine with a pipe.
Oh, yeah.
I forget about it. I completely forget about it until I look at the. Oh, I haven't done that yet. Let's see. I have a picture.
I don't know how it would work for you in your scale, but I found a great belt material for HO, and that is the model airplane, remote control model airplane guys. They put out all these different size tapes that are sticky on the back. So you peel the stickum off, you cut the belt to the size you want, and you put it on the piece that you want, and you heat it up with a blowed hair dryer, and it actually tightens the belt up. It shrinks the.
How wide are they?
Well, the stuff that I use is only less than. Maybe a 1/16 of an inch wide.
Okay.
I've used it on. I don't think I've used it for tie downs for trucks.
Is this like graphic tape, like using?
Exactly, for pinstriping or something like that.
Okay, so cause I would need about a scale 10-inch wide, and those got to be about 0.2 of an inch, 0.2. 3/16, something like that. But the trouble is, I just posted that picture. I was trying to find a picture of the other thing I did. I can never find anything. Oh yeah.
That's the belt. That's the stuff that I use. And like I say, it's stick 'em on the back. So you wrap it around and glue the ends, and then you heat it up a little bit, and it tightens right up.
It's like chart tape.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, back in the old days, from before the computer technology, you had the chart tape in like 1/16 and 1/8 and 1/32, and you'd use it you'd make your hand make your charts back in the old days.
That's about 1/16 of an inch. That right there, what you saw.
That's beautiful.
Well, of course.
I just used it. Ooh, I just used it. You want to see cool? I like this is cool. Wait a minute. I'm gonna find this R model.
Have we been on here for 5 hours?
No.
No, I think I started at 11:30, so almost.
I don't think I got to you guys until about noontime. Maybe a little later.
I thought it was around 10:30, 11 that we started. Jesus. Luckily,
when you're having fun.
let's see. I want to find a blasted picture. I can't.
I'm going to walk away from the computer, so I can't control the screens, but if you want your picture to show up, you got to do the talking.
Oh, I like that.
Well, I'm going to have to take off completely here anyway.
Yeah, I got to go to Lowe's and buy one of those little jiggle saws.
I have to go feed my wife, and
I got to go feed myself. I've been sitting here all freaking day. I'm glad you told me like that, because I seriously, I was considering one of those. Maybe what I was going to do is I was going to walk around Lowe's and just go, wonder if this will work.